to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A special meeting of the Board of Supervisors is scheduled for Tuesday, January 30th, 2018 at 9 a.m. at the Island View Restaurant, 35468 Tea Time Circle. Next regular meeting is scheduled for Friday, February 9th, 2018 at 9 a.m. at the Island View Restaurant at 35468 Tea Time Circle. Please silence or turn off your cell phones. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any comment?
Yes.
Okay.
I was going through the resolution actually again this morning since I was up real early and I had nothing else to do except look through the paperwork here. In any case, I do have a question on it. And I think it's important that we get rid of surplus material and, you know, whether it be for scrap or something else. But I do have a question on the, I guess we're calling it, not the Quonset huts, but the two huts that we had for no, not for actually for storage, but for the temporary, for the temporary while we were building the maintenance facility. I don't know what we're going to get for those, but I do recall that when we were voting on this and looking at temporary storage facilities, there was a lot of discussion because these units were somewhere, we had a range of prices anywhere from $100,000 to $35,000, which was pretty significant. And we talked about the pros and cons about leasing it versus buying it. And it was at that time and agreed upon that we were in negotiations with the people who were providing us these sheds or these units, that we would get 50% back at the end of the term, which would be roughly, you know, if there were 35,000, it's going to be a little over 17,000. I suspect that if this goes to auction, we're lucky if we get $10,000 for both of them. I might be wrong on that, but I think it's, we were told we were going to get 17.5 back, and where did that go? What happened?
We're actually not taking the sheds to auction. What we're doing is we are going to leave them there where they stand today and advertise for sealed bids from the public. So I think the half, or the 17,000 or so, was estimated by the vendor at the time that we could get back within a year. So we hope to get that, but we don't know what sealed bids are going to be.
Yeah,
so
and also, Tanya, can I interrupt?
Sure.
We also decided to keep the ones down to sewer plant because it protects the equipment we have down there. So we're only going to auction off 2 of them instead of actually 4 of them. So we're only auctioning off 2.
2 out of 4.
2 out of 4, and that's where the $17,000 came in. If we would have sent everything back, we thought we would get that back. But for the cost to put them in, to install them, to put the electrical and stuff, it's really a no-brainer to keep what we have down the sewer plant because it's going to protect a lot of our equipment down there, which in the past we had nothing to protect it. They weren't undercover or anything. So that's why we decided to go that way.
Okay. So
we're only going to auction off 2, Mark.
Okay, the 2 we're auctioning off. What was the cost of those then? Was that $70,000, $35,000 a piece, or $35 for both of them?
No. To buy them, they were around $9,000 a piece.
Okay.
Each one. Now you got to remember the $35,000 you're talking about was also which
included the insulation, which also included adding electrical and bringing water to them. I mean, that wasn't, the cost per unit, so I think you're getting a little confused there.
Well, I'm just, I might be confused. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But the minutes stated
Right,
that it was 35,000 and we were getting 17 and a half back. It didn't state
Well,
that
we're
it
not
had to do with
giving
anything.
everything,
Okay.
Okay.
But I was under the assumption we were getting 17 and a half
I
back.
understand. Good
Okay.
question.
And Mark, this week in a meeting I had with Tanya, I think Mike and Tanya are hoping to get back more than what we thought.
We
This
are.
way. The way we're doing it instead of what they told us. But that's what they told me.
No, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I'm just saying that, the expectation was 17 and a half.
For all
That's
four, Mike's right, it was
Yeah.
all 4 sheds,
Yeah.
but 2 of them are only going to go to sealed bid. So,
We discussed a minimum bid. Are we doing that?
We want to start it at $3,000 a unit, start it there. We've had 4 people interested so far. Nobody's given me any price of what they want. Well, one person said that, what he was going to bid per unit. So, I mean, I don't know what anybody else could bid because it's going to be sealed bid, so.
Okay.
But we also have another golf course interested in them also, so, so.
There's no place, other areas that we could utilize those maybe?
There is, but, well, I mean, there's always a place you can use, use something like that. But I really don't think, I think with the facility that we have, I think for the next 20 years, we're in good shape.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any public comment?
Dave Alvick. I don't have the list of the list of the equipment on there, but in order to clean up the resolution, if those are the ones that we're gonna sell that don't go to auction, does that we have to amend the resolution to clean that up? I don't know what's on the list. I looked at the list, but I don't know what's on it. Just a thought.
It lists it as Exhibit A, so I don't know. David would have to answer that.
Oh, no, I mean, we're good. It's the standard surplus, so whatever's on the list is what's going to surplus. So I'm assuming the 2 things that we're talking about sending to public auction are not on the surplus list.
Yeah, right.
Mark?
They are on the surplus list.
They're on the surplus.
That's
They're on the
the
surplus
question.
list, yeah.
They are on the surplus
They are on the
list.
surplus.
So,
we're going to do an advertised sealed bid on the 2 later. The resolution is just to deem the equipment surplus. Okay, so that's what we have to do first, whether we send it to auction or whether we do a sealed bid process for that. So that's what the resolution is today.
So then, no, it's just deeming the property surplus property to be disposed of as, which is it.
Any other public comment? Do we need, no, go ahead.
Supervisor Stiegel?
Yes.
Supervisor Branson?
Yes.
Supervisor Brooks?
Yes.
Supervisor Camp?
yes.
President Gilpin?
Yes. I'm going to need a motion to recess to conduct the landowners meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. I would ask the supervisors if they would to go out and sit in the audience. Okay.
Wrong way.
Mike Gilpin, 5515 Matanzas. I make a motion to nominate Wally Edgel, chairman of the landowners meeting. I'd like to have a second. Is there any additional nominees? Okay. Do we have just a voice vote? Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Edgell?
Up here. Okay, I guess everybody got the agenda for this meeting. We're on back over here. Did everyone get one? Things we need to cover and so forth like that. I think the first thing we need to do is to nomination of the secretary. And usually in the meetings that I've seen in the past, the administrative assistant from the district office, Chrissy Hardman, has had that duty. So we need a nomination for that? Nomination from the floor?
Support.
All ayes? Okay. I guess you're the secretary. She does all the minutes and so forth like that, so she'll be getting those out, which I'll mention later on. And now, Dan, if you would come forward for your swearing, if you go to the administration table, and they will swear you in there.
Mr. William Stiegel was the only person that qualified for the landowner seat in this position. His seat was uncontested, and so since he has already taken oath in this position, I would like to introduce Mr. Stiegel as the new landowner seat, and at this time there's no real need to do another oath since you've already done the oath in the current position that you're in. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll show you that there was a copy of the minutes from the January 27 meeting, 2017. It was back there, and we need to approve those minutes. Do I have a motion to that effect? Second? Second, David seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're good on that. Now we have the annual report, which is also published and on the counter back there from the district manager, Tanya. So, Tanya, can you take over now?
Yes, sir.
All
Thank
right.
you. Good morning to everyone today. I've provided you a copy of the districts in my report for the 2017 year. And, this report summarizes the projects that we've completed, our statistics on where we are in our recreation and public works, code enforcement, and security. Sun and Lake was created in 1974 by Highlands County when the ordinance, otherwise known as what we call our charter, was approved by the Board of County Commissioners. We're classified as an independent special district, which is a governmental entity recognized by the state of Florida. And I'm sharing this with you today because our district charter has been amended from time to time throughout the years as changes occur. Like I said before, this report summarizes the district's major operational accomplishments for 2017. This has been a very challenging year for our district operations due to Hurricane Irma, which made landfall on Sunday, September 10th. The eye wall of the storm went directly over Sun and Lake with heavy rainfall and Category 3 wind speeds. Our facilities operated on generated power until the electricity was restored. It's a very critical time to keep our facilities up and running, and we maintain uninterrupted water service for 3,700 residents and commercial businesses here in the district until electricity was restored. I'm going to show you a couple pictures of the damage from the golf courses here in a few minutes. Oh, actually, this is one of them, but I'll get to that. That's okay. I'll get to that in a few minutes. The district's overall financial stability and health is a very strong position for community and the growth for the future. We have funded our new $1.8 million maintenance facility through our utility reserve account known as our Utility Renewal Replacement Improvement Fund. The district finished its fiscal year September 30th with a $13 million budget and no debt. Over $400,000 of additional repair costs were incurred from Hurricane Irma for this community. We are hoping that a high percentage of these costs will be reimbursed by FEMA sometime this calendar year. Assessments and utility rates remain the same as last year, and the golf rates increased 3% from 2016. I want to thank all my staff for a great year, a very challenging year, and I will move on to a few projects that we have finished in 2017. The first one is our Unit 23 wastewater treatment plant blower project. Okay. And the pictures are inside the document that I provided to you today. The Unit 2 Palazzo Rear Lot Drainage Project, the District Office Roof Replacement, the Matanzas Lift Station Rehabilitation, and the Edgewater Drive Lift Station Rehabilitation. We completed Phase 1 of our drainage remediation project and main ditch cleaning projects, and last but not least, of course, our maintenance facility that I mentioned to you before. There's some pictures in here of befores and afters, and I'll move on to a couple of pictures for everyone. This is a picture of Deer Run after the hurricane, and you can see the fairway, what it looked like, and closed for some time. You want to move on? There's an aerial shot of our community center. We'll get to a couple more hurricane damage pictures here in a second. Just an aerial shot of our tennis courts and pickleball courts. This is a picture of the pond between the driving range and the putting green, practice putting green. So you can see that the water levels were so excessive they went all the way into the district office area where we park our trucks and equipment, literally by 2 feet into that area.
Yes, at least 2 feet.
So it tells you I haven't seen the actual official rainfall amounts, but we believe that we received about 14 inches of rain. This is another picture on Deer Run. Just a couple other things I wanted to mention with our memberships here in the community. We have about 310 golf memberships currently. We have 530 memberships for our fitness corner, 790 memberships for our pool, and 510 for the racket club. And last, I'd like to mention a couple things with our code enforcement. The Sun and Lake Code Enforcement, we took 15 cases to the special magistrate this year that resulted in $17,000 of liens being assessed to properties, and we collected just over $16,000 in those liens in the current year. With security, our security department totaled 80,870 miles of travel within the district boundaries. And we had over 437 incidents where we were called, and 8,500 watch orders performed for residents that were out of town or were north for the summertime. Thank you very much, and I appreciate everyone being here today.
Thank you. I'd just like to take a second. All of us know all about the hurricane, the damage it did, and so forth like that. But I'd just like to take a second to mention and thank the board for what they did, because the 5 members of that board were out there working, just not making decisions. They were out there working, along with Tanya and her staff, and Mike Hurley and Omar DeJesus, who are all involved in this, and these people really, really deserve a round of applause. The next thing on the agenda is any unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? I have a couple of letters, but I'm going to do that in the next section. All right, let's get no unfinished business. Go into new business. One of the things that I have in new business is a letter that was sent to the board that I'd like to read, because you seldom get letters like this, that these people deserve this, but it's from the Sun and Lake Veterans Relief Fund, and that's the people that really control the interest and the monies for the veterans in our county. And the letter is from Denise Williams, U.S. Army, and she's the County Veteran Service Officer for Highlands County. And she states, "Gentlemen, the veterans of Highlands County and the Highlands County Veteran Services Office want to commend each of you on how you exemplify the meaning of going above and beyond. Had it not been for your organization, there would have been many veterans without Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners. You continue to surpass many other organizations in your relief effort for veterans in need. As the veterans were receiving their Christmas dinners, Mr. McCullough," that's Kurt McCullough, one of our residents, "handed out Walmart gift cards. We had the privilege of the veterans returning the very next day and saying, 'I have been a veteran for 50 years, and this is the first time I have ever received anything for being a veteran.' Let me say it was moving and a humbling moment. I cannot thank each of you enough for always being there for this office when the veterans are in need. Respectfully, Denise Williams." And she specifically mentions Kurt McCullough, Mike Hurley, Gene O'Hara, and Howard Umpress. And they have that golf course and raise all that money. And Kurt McCullough, I don't know how many trips he's made to the veterans hospitals and hauling people over in the van and handing out money. And Kurt McCullough has been in this, it's a full-time job for him. It's a full-time job. And so I think the next time you see Kurt, he isn't here, is he? The next time you see Kurt, pat him on the back, because he really deserves it. He does a lot for that. I'll put that, give that to Chris, you for the minutes. I also received a letter from Agnes and Brian Snowball about the dog park and so forth, questions about that. Since that is something that was passed, and I'm going to forward this letter to you, that if you put it in and put it for the next board meeting for them to consider their concerns on that. Any other new business? Yes, sir. Can you come? If you do have some, could you come to the podium and mention your name so we can keep that on the record?
Yeah, Bob Shaw.
Okay.
Nita Street. It's a year ago now since Mike and his team met with myself and two other landowners about the ditch behind Matanzas and Nita Street. Since that time, it's never been cleared or weeded or anything. It's well overgrown. There's hurricane debris in there. I know nothing's been done because of the hurricane situation and the potential for putting in the drainage pipe. Right. I just wondered if there was a schedule as to when this job was going to be done.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mike?
Can you want to explain about what we about the bids and stuff
Yes.
yesterday?
We received 5 bids yesterday for this project. There's no set schedule yet, so we're going to be reviewing those bids and bringing the bids to the board sometime in February for approval. So as soon as we have award a bid and we receive a schedule from the contractor, we're going to let the residents know.
Okay. Mr. Shaw, I'd like to address that also, since thank you for coming in. I was on the board at one time, and these drainage ditches have been a problem all the time I was on the board. And when we would send out for bids for these, you might get 1 bid, sometimes 2, and you got 5 bids this time. So we have people interested in doing this work now. It used to be just maybe not. So, but thank you for coming. Any other new business? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Jim Van Horn from off Matanzas. This is another planned drainage issue that we talked about earlier. The front ditches and culverts, are they scheduled to do that this winter sometime, or when is that going to happen?
We will. What street are you on? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Pardon me?
What street? Matanzas. Yes. We're going to do a lot of handwork, but we also have contractors that bid on the areas that we've talked about where I met with you. As soon as we finish the bids, well, the bids are done. you'll be getting letters, and we'll be sending letters out to let you know when we'll be starting, the starting date.
So we can expect that sometime
This year.
this year, great.
Yes, right.
Thank you.
Any other new business?
Yes, sir. My name is Paul McAllister, and I have property at the back of number 12, on Deer, number 12, the pond. I'm just wondering if there's an update on it. I had mentioned earlier about it's a disgrace, there's dead fish in there. There's all kinds of debris from, I thought you could hear me. Anyway, okay. There's all kinds of debris in the back of the pond. There's dead fish. I've taken out aluminum siding from houses, big branches, etc. The rest of the golf courses here are terrific, the ponds, etc. I'm just wondering if there's an update on the cleaning of the pond. Yesterday there was not. I brought it to somebody's attention on Monday, and it still hasn't been done, so I'm just wondering if that could be looked into.
Jim, Mike?
I think I mentioned the Jim on Monday.
Right, I didn't know, while we, on that hole, we have to clean it up. We've been so backed up with so much work, we know it has to be done. I don't know when we have it on the schedule. I'm not going to tell you exactly when we're going to do it, but yes, we have it scheduled to go in and clean it up. Now, the dead fish, I don't know what's,
I don't know how the fish get in there in the first place.
Yeah. I don't know.
Not very big, but
and I don't know how they got in there either, so.
You wouldn't want
Yeah,
to back in.
right.
But I appreciate that. I have tried to clean all the stuff out myself.
We have cleaned some ponds already, but we're working our way up.
I appreciate it. Just bringing it to your attention, find out where we are.
And the aluminum siding, I'm sure, came from the storm.
It did.
Yeah.
We didn't do a DNA on it yet. So
No, not yet. Well, maybe we should. Thank you.
Any other new business? All right, Mr. Shaw.
I'd just like to confirm that is the program still in place for new homeowners, first-time homeowners in the district to get a golf membership for 1 year?
Yes, still active for 2018, yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And didn't I read there's a meeting's already been held or coming for the new members, new residents and board members?
February 6th.
February 6th.
Here at the Island View Restaurant at 6 o'clock. We have a new resident meeting where we can meet staff and they can meet the Board of Supervisors.
Because that's a very, very important meeting, and I've been to two of them in Board of Supervisors, and it works out wonderful for new people in the community. Any other new business?
Mark Fraley. Is there any early indication of any positive or negative impact on doing away with the Latino America tournament, or is that too early to speculate?
I'll start on this. I think that it was voted by the board not to have the Latino tournament and not to have the Canadian tournament, and they went back and forth different ways. But is that where we're at on that?
We are not having those tournaments in 2018, but your question is the impact of not having those tournaments?
Yeah, negative or positive?
Jim, would you want to speak to that?
Well, the impact, negative or positive, I guess, are you saying financial? Obviously, there's the reason the decision was made not to host those events were a number of reasons. The damage they did to the golf course, the displacement of the golfers, and so forth. I know we haven't closed out January, so we don't have a full picture, and then it's not necessarily accurate because the weather this year relative to outside play is not at all what it was to last year. But we will have a end of the month, January, that'll show month to month, but it's going to be the entire month.
Thank you, Mark. Any other new business? Yes, sir.
Ray Hagley, 3717 Edgewater. Was there any other consideration of locations for the dog park? I mean, I'm a snowbird. But, we came in here kind of, I don't know too much about this. Can they get a little discussion about this dog park?
There was enormous discussion about that, and it was in every board meeting minutes because we discussed it every meeting. And the newsletter that goes out to all residents, whether the snowbirds or not, there was things in there about it. But there was a lot of discussion going on about this because it was initiated because we had a petition with over 100 signatures on the petition. And I kind of took that as a lead to have that dog park. We did consider, I don't know how many places we considered, and every one of them fell apart because of some reason. And we ended up with that decision to have it over here because of its access and so forth like that. I was with Mike and others when we see if there's going to be any visual effect on you all looking out. I know one thing most of you bought it for you can see on the lake. Well, this is only 4 feet or 5 feet high, and it's fencing, so there won't be any problem for you there. There's a lot of questions. I understand that, and we're going to cover this, Ray, here just in the public comment area, and I'll have people discuss that with everybody, so you know the facts of what's really going on and what this is about and stuff like that. I had a feeling that it was going to come up, so and we will discuss that.
Just not negative. We need to know a little bit more about it, parking and.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Okay,
I thank you for bringing up the point, and we are going to discuss it and get your opinions on it, so forth like that. I do want to say, anything else?
No.
Okay, all right. We can get into that in the public comment area if you want to. Is there any other new business?
Lon Rickard, I live on Granada Boulevard, 5605. I was wondering if we could go back to looking at putting another speed table on Granada between this street here and the stop sign. They got one there, and they stop there, and then it's a drag strip down to the next stop sign. So
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that is a matter that needs to be discussed. It's just not there. There's others also, and Mike can do a better job of this than I can. I know what the biggest catch of it is get the residents right have to approve it, and that seems to be a problem sometimes with that. So.
I just don't understand why 100% of the residents have to approve that, because it's not the residents that are speeding.
They don't. It's not 100%. I think it's 65 or 70, which I don't think you're going to have a problem getting signatures there anyways, because we do have a lot of complaints. But we have to get the signatures, in order to, to.
So you're telling me I have to go to every house in Granada?
Lonnie, I had to do the same thing on Columbus. I had to go, and I know there's a little less, but that's the way to get it in.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And I agree with Lonnie. They do
terrible.
It's from one speed to, and see how fast they can go. So
yeah,
that's a good point.
It is, and those speed bumps. I can sit in my back room, and there's a speed bump right there on Columbus, and I see cars going through and they don't bother. Don't even worry about that. And you can see the sparks fly. Especially there's one guy, you can tell Bob, there's one guy out there with a little black sedan with the windows open, and that kid runs that block like it is a speedway. And I can't catch him. Okay, any other new business? You want to move on to public comment now? Any public comment? Was there? I mentioned to Ray that. Yes, sir. You want to come up?
I was wondering if anyone has. I can talk loud enough. I was wondering if anyone on the board has given any consideration to the liability factor if you have a dog park there and somebody gets attacked or bitten.
Okay. And your name, sir?
My name is Jim Jones. I live on Edgewater Drive.
I'll address that. We've run the liability issue has been run through the attorney and so forth like that. But I have to mention something to you that. Only in courtesy to the board. this was approved by the board, and financed and so forth by the board, but for us to discuss this in here, the board members cannot discuss this while they're sitting here. So there's no use to ask the board member or anybody to have anything to say. It needs to be, they can only discuss this according to the Sunshine Law. Any issue that's going to be brought up that could possibly come up for a vote, they cannot discuss amongst themselves, only in a public forum. So this was passed by the board. I know that Mike Hurley, myself, and others worked on it, trying to get it put together and so forth. I'm going to present to the board the minutes from this meeting and your concerns with that, and then when the board is brought together on their next meeting, they can discuss it then. If they want to discuss it, it'll be up to them. But for us now, it'd just be the concerns to get your concerns. Okay? Could you come up here, ma'am?
What about parking?
Okay, it's been discussed about parking. I'll let Mike, because that is a nice issue. I agree. And your name?
Lola Dixon, and I live on Edgewater Drive.
Lola?
Lola, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that is a great question. Thank you. That's okay.
We are not adding any parking to Edgewater, because there's all no parking on the opposite side of your condos. We are not adding anything. The only thing that, well, let me give you a little history. Okay, for the past 7 years, I've got more complaints about people walking dogs in that area that don't pick up after their dogs. And the majority of the complaints is from people from the condos, right? So we tried to figure out, okay, how can we police people walking their dogs? You can't be there all the time. So there was a lot of discussion about a dog park, to fence them in, to allow people to walk their dogs in the dog park, right? So that's how this all started. And all started with complaints of people, because people walk their dogs now every day, right? 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, in the mornings, they're always there. So we had 3 different areas that we looked at, Wally and I. Like, that was the most convenient for all the residents. We do this for all the residents of Southern Lake. So that was the area we come up with. We're not taking a lot of trees out. We're taking a few because there are some dead pines anyways. We're going to take the least amount of trees. It's going to be a 5-foot high fence. It's going to blend in with the area. There's going to be no view change for anybody, right? There's going to be no parking added. Okay.
Okay. I added something about parking.
Yes.
When that was being discussed over, you know where those storage buildings are at?
Yes.
In the turn?
Yes.
That's going to be the parking area for us. We designated parking for people that take their dogs up there. Then there's going to be more no parking signs being put on across the street from you. Mm-hmm. And we've also discussed about security. Mm-hmm. More often than not, they're going to be over there, and we want you all's complaints. Someone's parking in my parking spot, and we're going to issue tickets. Mm-hmm. Okay. And if they...
Then there's another question.
Mm-hmm.
That area in there was a home for the owls. They would come and nest.
Yeah,
now, they're not going to come there with all those dogs yapping and carrying on. So
well, they come now, and there's a lot of people walk dogs. As a matter of fact, there's people in this audience right now. One lady, I see her every day. She walks her dog. She has 3 or 4 dogs. And those owls, right, but those owls been there for years. Now, we've actually had the owls fall out of the nest, and I had myself and somebody from security actually climb the tree and put the owls back in.
I know.
And they're back again every year.
I know. I remember that. But, I'm just concerned because people park. I mean, when there's fireworks, they park all over the place. Mm-hmm. Who's going to watch all that?
What we're going to need help from from the residents that live there. Okay, if somebody's parking in your spot, which if they park there now, you call, right? And we understand we're going to have to police it probably a little better, once we put this in. I really don't think there's going to be that much of a change, for people bringing dogs in from the outside. And that's what I keep hearing. Well, you're going to allow people from the outside in. I don't think there's going to be that much. And then if there is, then I guess we could probably change the rules down the road. But there's a big request for a dog park. And there's always been, I mean, I've been doing this for 7 years, and every year people say, well, when are you going to put a dog park in? At least they're contained. So, and now, I just talked to Omar.
That letter that you stated, we didn't receive that letter, so that's why...
Well, this has been going on for,
surprise to us
what,
when we came.
a year and a half?
We started in May
April.
of 2000.
April or May of 2017.
Do you get the newsletter from Sun
We didn't
Lake?
send a letter.
Sun Lake?
We did not send a letter to the residents of Edgewater.
Yes.
No, ma'am.
No?
We did not send a letter.
So we didn't know anything about it, Mr. Across the street from us? Okay. So my other question, there was another question that was totally... It's my understanding it may be open 24 hours?
Well, we're not going to lock it, no.
Okay.
But I want to say something.
Yes.
I don't think there's going to be that many people walking their dogs at 2 or 3 in the morning and letting them run. I mean, I hope there won't anyways. I mean,
Dawn to dusk.
Dawn to dusk,
Yes,
right.
that, just
Dawn
like
to
our
dusk.
other facilities, dawn to dusk. I mean, that's the rules for
Right.
the rest of our facilities.
Right.
There's going to be additional parking at the community center, so you're welcome to park at the community center. There's handicap parking there as well, and to walk to the dog park.
David?
I'm as guilty as anybody for not bringing this up before, but this letter, when I saw this letter, it opened up some things, and I questioned it, and I've had the same opportunity as anybody else to question some of that. And I'm like this lady, I don't have any problem with a dog park, but you got to have some empathy for them, because it's going to hurt their property values, and it's going to hurt their quality of life, I believe. But also, that property, and I've discussed it with a certain individual, that it's R3 zoned and it was set aside for golf villas at one time, and there's no problem with putting a fence up, but that's pretty valuable property to put a dog park there, as far as I'm concerned, because if somebody comes in and wants to develop that, it just have to be torn down and relocated. So,
but might I address that? Because that did come up in the meetings we had, and that was the one thing that those residents over there said: don't you ever let anybody build apartments on this side and block our view of that lake. We always kept the view of that lake in our mind all the time, because people over there would tell me, say, I bought here, I want to see that lake out there. If we build, someone comes in there, developer, and builds 2 stories over there, they're done.
yeah, but he could.
The property value would go down.
The way it's zoned, they could. They keep saying that they couldn't, but they could.
Yeah, I know. That's
It's zoned multifamily.
Yeah.
So it's just pretty valuable property to put that dog park on, and as far as outside people coming from outside, there ought to be a big sign on it, and it should say Sun and Lake is funding this thing. It ought to be a big sign out there. Hey, number one, a disclaimer for liability. Number two, it should be only for the residents of Sun and Lake, and only should be in capital letters. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, I don't know what anybody else thinks about it, but that's my thoughts.
I think you're going to get some agreement on that, because in our planning, there was signage put in. There's going to be plenty of signage over to explain to people, Sun and Lake paid for this. This should be for Sun and Lake people, and we're hoping that people won't drive in from Sebring and can bring their dog up here to walk it.
Yeah, well,
there is a dog park in Avon Park.
I'm sure you had had some more activity early on if somebody would have posted a sign up there saying "Future Home of Sun and Lake Dog Park." I believe these people would have had an issue earlier than what they have now. I mean, they got blindsided just a little bit.
Yeah, I thank you. Thank you, David.
My name is Michelle Archer, and I live on Monza Drive in Sebring. And for the little lady that's worried about owls, I'm the one with 4 dogs, and I know everything about owls. I can show you every nest around here with Mr. Halbeck, and you don't have to worry about the owls. I want you to know that 56% of people own pets in the United States. 41% of pets are owned by 65 and older. And 89% of the cities in the United States have parks for pets. Parks, okay? Right now, if we don't have a pet park in Sebring, we're going to be behind times, right here in Sun and Lakes. Pet parks higher property values. They bring people to the area. They bring seniors to the area because people 65 and older can't run after their pets anymore. They need a level ground to walk their pets because they're getting too old to walk their pets on their property. They're getting too old to walk them on the strip. They can't chase their dogs anymore. It's good for seniors. I don't know if you're reading in the newspaper now, but people that have pets live longer. It's healthier for them. It helps their hearts. It increases livability in the area. It discourages crime and loitering in the neighborhoods, pet parks. Dog parks are the number 2 amenity people search for when they're looking to live in a community. The number 2 amenity. You can look it up. The statistics are there. Okay? So I think that we should start looking at the statistics to see if they are good or not. It's not going to lower the property rate there. And a fence is easy to take down if it doesn't look like it's a good place to put it there. But I think we should give it a chance and see before we knock down something that is good for the community. Sun and Lakes has to get with the program, and we got to keep developing and getting better, not go backwards. Thank you.
Michelle, that was one of the things that we studied when we went to do this. We had the same stats that you have, but we found out from the real estate agents, and that's another thing I was issued on a marketing program. We found out from real estate agents were telling us that was one of the things that people ask, do you have a dog park?
That's
when they want to buy a house here. And that office knows it because they get asked all the time. So we thought that might be a good marketing thing.
It is a good
get
marketing.
people here. And but we had your stats, and we discussed them every time we do. So, well, this is the reason we're doing this.
And
so,
it is a good area, and it's
Yeah.
nice and flat for the seniors.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time. Anybody else? There you go.
Margaret Jennings, I'm on Matanzas,
Okay.
at Edgewater also. A comment was made earlier today when I walked in about the dog dirt not being picked up by people using that area now. With the dog park, I don't see people changing their habits. Will the district be doing this, picking up the dog dirt in dog park?
No.
Okay, so it's just allowed to amass?
No. Well, we maintain that area. We'll cut the grass. We'll go in and clean it. We pick up trash. We pick up trash on the streets. Yes, we will maintain it.
There's going to be some waste stations in there,
have
Mike.
a full-time employee sit over there and
Okay.
watch the dogs. No.
No. You're
But yes,
hoping
we
that
are going to.
people
No,
won't
no, no,
change
no.
their
No.
habits.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. But we will maintain the area. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
There's
You
the
know,
older
and I really
down
don't
there.
think. I mean, and I agree with her.
Oh, I
100%.
agree totally with
You
dog
know?
parks.
Yeah.
But they're not usually in a high population area.
Right, I understand. Well, Central Park has one.
I know.
Okay.
Well, Margaret,
There's not-
might I add that, we talked about that, and we found out that a lot of these dog owners are telling us that they're police it.
Yeah.
They don't want their dog in there when Mary Lou brings her dog in and it poops all over the place. They're police it themselves.
Okay.
And part of the thing is putting it in there, which she was about to say, is we have stations there, we have water in there and the whole deal, but they will be mowing it, trimming it, keep it looking nice. But I agree,
And there'll be
that
no
could
lights.
be a problem.
No lights or
Oh,
anything at night.
I don't.
And I understand, okay, all right.
I figured it was done with that.
But I promise we'll do the best we can to police it. Okay?
It's a little more.
Okay, I hear you.
Anybody
Thank
else?
you.
Jim Jonas, 6028 Matanzas Drive. My comment about the dog park issue is the parking. Because I rent a space in the cart barn over there that you were referring to earlier, Wally, where you're going to direct the people to park in that area. has any consideration been done about putting some signs up to tell these people, don't park to block the cart barn? Because if I go over there to get my cart out one day and there's a dog's car there, I'm going to be barking.
Yeah, you're right. There is going to be signs here that's parking off the side.
Yeah, I mean, I always make a habit of parking towards the street side, but you get people in there and the dog's got to go. I got to park quick, get my dog to the park, and I can't get my cart out.
No, I agree with you. On that.
Put some signs up.
We are going to put some signs up.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
We don't want you parking, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
I'm Judy Dornan. I live on Edgewater.
Okay.
I am not against a dog park. I'm against where you're putting it. I don't want to see a bunch of signs over here. I don't want to see a fence. I think this is the whole focal point of Sun and Lake. And I think that's why a lot of people have bought the park, the golf course in the back. Fencing is going to take away from it. And I don't agree with it. I think there's many other places we could have put it.
Okay, thank you. That'll be in the minutes to go to the board. And what was your last name, Johnny?
Green-Dorn.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm Shirley Schumann Allegre. I don't have a dog. However, what I feel like is the learning point for all of us is that we really do need to keep up on the minutes. We need to keep up on the activities with Sun and Lake. In other words, we have a responsibility too. So I do feel bad for some of the people who weren't aware, but unfortunately, there are things that slip up on us, and I just think we need to be more prudent in being able to try and get information about what's going on. And I'm really happy to see so many people here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Chrissy, you have all those comments for me? Okay, the only other thing is, now, since that is over, is to adjourn. But before we do, I want to add one thing. Today, the board is going to re-adjourn, and they're going to elect a new president. And I'd just like everybody to know that Mike Gilpin has been president for a year, works every day for this place, and he's certainly stepping down now to be a regular board member. And I think we ought to give him a standing ovation for what he's done. With that being said, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, Wally. Thank you. Okay.
9:50. While we're coming up here, I'd like to thank Dr. Edgel for reigning over that special meeting, and I want to thank everybody. I like the crowd here. I wish we could have more of a crowd every meeting we have. I need a motion to reopen the regular meeting, or reconvene the regular meeting.
Motion to reconvene.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to accept the action agenda.
Second.
Okay, next on the agenda is the election of officers to the board. The first board member will be the president. Can I have a motion?
I nominate Mark Camp.
Second.
Any comment? Any other motions? Public comment? Okay, Chrissy.
Supervisor Branson?
Yes.
Supervisor Brooks?
Yes.
Supervisor Camp?
Yes.
Supervisor Stiegel?
Yes.
President Gilpin?
Yes. Congratulations, Mark. You can come over here and sit down.
I'll just switch. We can switch. Yeah, thanks.
That's the only way I could get rid of him.
Now you run the rest. Okay.
So I guess the next item on the action agenda would be the election of the vice president. Do we have a nomination for the vice president?
I'll nominate Joe Branson.
Second.
Okay. Chrissy?
Supervisor Brooks?
Yes.
Supervisor Stiegel?
Yes.
Supervisor Branson?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilpin?
Yes.
President Camp?
Yes. Next on the action item is treasurer. Do I have a nomination for treasurer?
Omar DeJesus.
Yeah. I will nominate Omar DeJesus.
I second it.
Chrissy?
Supervisor Gilpin?
Yes.
Supervisor Stiegel?
Yes.
Supervisor Branson?
Yes.
Supervisor Brooks?
Yes.
President Camp?
Yes. Final on the election is for secretary. Do I have a nomination for secretary?
Nominate Chrissy Hardman. Second.
Supervisor Stiegel?
Yes.
Supervisor Branson?
Yes.
Supervisor Brooks?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilpin?
Yes.
President Camp?
Yes. Next on the action agenda is a discussion item of Billy Casper golf reimbursement request. Tanya, could you just bring us up to speed on that and maybe read that letter?
Yes. On December 8th, I sent a letter to Billy Casper Management for a request of reimbursement of $15,000 related to the greens damage on our golf courses. I received a response from Tony Chansey on January 18th that says, while we do agree that we could have better managed our greens, we would agree to the $15,000 reimbursement with an opportunity to recoup this money if the club performs better than expected for the fiscal year. And I provided that email to you in here along with some other information relating to the greens replacement cost.
Board discussion?
Yeah. You want me to start?
Somebody start.
First of all, I just make this, I guess, as simple as I can make it is, I think they ought to pay the $1,500 or $15,000, and we should let them do it on a 10-month basis like they want. But I must say, I think you all know, at least those that come to the meeting, I'm not real happy about settling this thing at $15,000. But I guess that's what we're going to do. Our total cost is $63,000. No fault of Sun and Lake, and we're going to settle for 15, and they come back and they want to earn that 15 back, which is our money. So what we'd be doing is paying them back $15,000 and them not paying nothing. I just think it's something we should talk more about up here at the board, because we can't talk unless we bring it up at the board meetings, and so we can be more in line. But I'm in, I don't know if when everybody gets done, but I'd like to to settle for the 15, which I'm not happy for, but, and I don't want them to be able to return or get anything back other than pay their share, and that's, is that 20, that's just under 25%, isn't it? Tanya, 15,000 of the actual damage that was done?
Damage was 63, you said it correctly.
So,
yes.
You know, I could go on and on and on, but that's that in a nutshell.
The word that comes to my mind is unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate that Florida summers are hot and humid. It's unfortunate that greens get fungus because of being hot and humid. It's unfortunate that our greens on Deer Run got fungus and it wasn't treated properly or in a timely manner, so we wound up costing us $63,000 for the two of them. It's also unfortunate that we have an antiquated irrigation system. It's unfortunate that it didn't properly water 3 of the greens on Turtle Run. It's further unfortunate that Billy Casper Golf employees did not follow their own guidelines and check each green every day. The other piece of this thing that's unfortunate is that we're not out of the woods yet as far as I'm concerned. You start putting sod, Bermuda sod, on greens as late as we did and you get a cold winter, we could have more damage. But the real unfortunate part to me is that, okay, I'm a banker, I'm an ex-banker. When I looked the guy in the eye and I decided whether or not to loan him $1 million or $10 million or whatever that number was, I already knew what the numbers were. I could look at it and say, well, yeah, he can pay me back. But the question in my mind was always, Willie, I had to feel like I had somebody across the desk that I could trust. He should also have had the same feeling that if he got into trouble, I wasn't going to call the lawyer first thing and say, okay, move out of your house or whatever the deal is. I mean, you got to be able to have a relationship with someone who, if it's going to be as it should be, you have to have a relationship that both sides contribute to. Honestly, Billy Casper Goff and Tony Chianci should have walked in here and said, hey, we need to figure out how to make this right. They didn't. It's unfortunate that we had to send them a letter and we in essence limited our potential recovery by sending a letter with a number in it, although I don't think we could have done anything else other than just call them saying, hey, we want our money. The whole thing is unfortunate in that it's damaged, at least in my mind, the relationship between Sun and Lake and Billy Casper Goff for basically a de minimis amount. I mean, we're paying these guys $120,000 a year, but we're trusting them to take care of basically most of the assets that we own. And I just think it's terribly unfortunate from both sides. That would be, without getting any further, that's the... And let me also, before I stop, let me just say, I'm not talking about Jim Kurtzborn. I'd hand Jim Kurtzborn my wallet right now. That's not an issue. It's a corporate situation.
Oh, you want me to go? Okay. I guess my biggest disappointment is that they haven't admitted that they did wrong, that they screwed it up. I still haven't seen an apology come from Billy Casper. I think the offer that they gave us here is a complete joke. It's an embarrassment to us that they insulted us like this, saying, well, we'll give you the $15,000, but you have to give us an opportunity to get that money back. To me, that's just an insult. I don't know. If they would have apologized and said, we screwed it up, I'd have a whole different outlook on this. But because they did not, I just have no regard for Billy Casper at this point in time. What I would like to know if we could do would be to alter the contract. David, you have to help me on this. Can we alter the contract and perhaps put in a clause saying, I don't know, if something happens like this again, that they would be responsible?
we can request a contract amendment, but like I say, all amendments have to be agreed to by both sides. So.
I mean, what I'd like to say, the 15,000 for us, it's not going to put us in, it's not going to make our day, and it's not going to break our day. But if something like this happens again, and the cost is 70,000, and we have it in the contract that they would be responsible for it, they'd have to pay the whole thing, and that's something I'd like to try to do if we could.
Yeah, I could put together a proposed amendment and to the contract, and we'll get it worded the way you guys want it. Then we propose it, and they, it's up to them to say yes or no.
The bigger question is, what if it's not 70,000 next time? What if it's 700?
Well,
I mean, if you screwed up 36 greens, it'd be a lot more than that. I mean, we're at risk, and apparently we don't have a partner who's willing to share the risk.
I just want to say, their offer is what I expected to hear from them. Totally agree with Mike. I don't think we should have any obligation to give them back that money for any reason. And I would strongly support a contract amendment if we can reach an agreement with them to create such a thing. Their lack of culpability from their perspective is not acceptable.
Most of the things that I was going to cover have already been covered by my colleagues. I am very disappointed. I'm disappointed in the fact that the cornerstone of our community is the golf operations. The community grows based on that, but we also have two other areas. We spend approximately a third of our total budget for the golf operations, and then the rest, that's 66% roughly, is covered for all of our district's drainage and so on. The fact that, I'm just repeating, but the fact that Casper didn't come forward at all and say they were responsible for this made me really concerned, because I don't know what's going to happen in the future. The organization presented way prior to me being, the organization, when they won the bid, and of course the history is it went from Kitson to Casper, which was one and the same unit, were certain provisions that they said they would be accountable for. It wasn't hard written, but it was part of their sales tool to say, if you select us as your partner, these are the things we'll do. The fact that we had this loss was an unfortunate thing, according to, everybody knows. But here we are, once again, stuck with a problem of $63,000 that we had to pay out. We asked for $15,000, and they came back with a counteroffer that said, well, give us a chance to recoup our $15,000. And, oh, by the way, we want to do that before interest, taxes, amortization, and everything else. So they want to take all of the number, and they want to work on the baseline. There's only one or two ways that can happen. They're going to cut back on the service. And when they cut back on the service, the community is going to suffer. I'm not totally opposed, and I'd have to talk to my colleagues here, and maybe we can discuss it. I'm not even sure that we should maybe be looking elsewhere, throw our feelers to see what else is out there. What other person might manage this operation? Maybe someone that's more interested in us. I don't know. Maybe that's a drastic step. I don't know that why it would be a problem. There's nothing wrong with checking and seeing what your options are out there. So I might be inclined to look in that direction. But once again, it's four other guys up here that, quite frankly, have to say they agree with that or they don't agree with it. And, that's what it's about.
I don't disagree with that. I do think perhaps the timing isn't the best, since we just agreed to have Delosier take a look at our whole operation. I'm not sure we want to be changing horses in the middle of that particular stream, but that's the only reason I wouldn't agree with taking a look at it right now. Frankly, I think the offer was insulting, and it pretty much tells us where we stand.
I would just add that if we did try to change the contract and they were not agreeable to it, then I'd look someplace else.
Well, there's enough weasel words in that contract, they can pretty much get away with whatever they want to do, and that's, they got lawyers getting paid by the hour, and we got lawyers getting paid by the hour, and neither one of the issue is you got to be able to trust the guy sitting across the desk from you to do the right thing, no matter what the weasel words say. And that's where I think we're falling down right now.
And it, just so everybody knows, it truly isn't anything against any of our employees that we have. I mean, I have no qualms with anybody who works for us, but it's the Billy Casper itself and what they stand for and what they do. I'd be in favor of trying to change that contract and wait and see what it is, but I certainly would like to, and I already have looked into other management companies, so they are out there. And I just got an email this morning from one of our residents. But they, we can't just pick anyone. They have to have food and beverage stuff at that. But I think we should try to work through this. But I think it opened the eyes of a lot of us supervisors of what we're really and who we're dealing with, and because it clearly is not anybody's fault at Sun and Lake that we lost those greens, other than maybe having Billy Casper golf do it. So I'm up for. I would just like to make sure that we ask for the $15,000 for sure.
Do you want me to incorporate that into part of the contract amendment? Do you want me to make that all part of the same deal, or do you want to settle that separately and me come up with a proposed contract amendment?
I think separate.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be my.
I would look at it separately.
All right.
Any further discussion? No?
Are you going
Public
to...
comment?
Excuse me, Mark.
Nope,
Are you going to then write a response to Mr. Chauncey?
Yes.
Yes.
Gary?
Gary Lilly, 5101 Magnolia, and president of the HOA of Magnolia. I am absolutely pleased with obviously the presentation of the board, and as a homeowner, I support them. Frankly put, I think we should take $120,000 and deduct the 63 from it. And frankly put, if Billy Casper isn't willing to step up, I encourage the board as a homeowner to make the moves, obviously, to get another firm to manage our business.
Charlie Shields, resident. Question, why was the number 15K brought up when you say that the damage was 63? I mean, how did we get to 15? Hell, I'd like to hire somebody, that just doesn't pass the dumb test. Answer?
Tanya.
I got to 15.
Yeah.
Well, that was great.
I can tell you.
Here's the situation, and correct me if I'm wrong, here's the situation. Because we're bound by sunshine laws, we can't discuss this prior to sitting in on a meeting with Tanya as a general manager. So if Tanya calls us in and says to us, what do you think would be a good number? And I'm just giving you a hypothetical. And one person says 20,000, another person says 50,000, another person says 70,000. You have to kind of take those 5 supervisors and come to somewhat of a consensus. You're not going to take the high person, but you're not necessarily going to take the low. So you kind of balance it out. You also have to take I believe you have to take into consideration and say what's realistic. If it's $63,000, they get $120,000 annually. You go back to them with $63,000, they're probably going to say to you, well, we're going to opt to get out of the contract, and then we're in scramble mode. That's my perspective on it. Now, maybe Tanya can add something.
Okay. The 5 of you up there right now can talk, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So, what did you agree to?
Well, that's
what can you?
Charlie. That's why I said when I first talked that we we have to talk at these board meetings.
We're at a board meeting.
Before, and what we did is, I brought it up, I wanted to talk about it, but it was the consensus of the board to have Tanya do it. I kind of objected to that because I wanted in on it, but we can't do that. There's no way I could do that, so I asked Tanya to take an average of what we wanted.
So you're telling me.
So I
work for Tanya.
No. That's not, but we should have, at that meeting, in the public, instead of worrying about what's politically correct, we should have talked at the meeting and set a figure in front of everybody, and then we could talk. But what happened is we turned it over to Tanya. I can't ask anybody. I can tell you, I asked for half the money. I asked for $33,000 is what I wanted from them, and that's why I was unhappy with 15. But so that's why I just say in the future we need, when it's discussion from board to board, whether it's popular or not, or whether somebody doesn't want us to talk about something, we have to do that, because I can't go after this meeting and call Ray up or Mark up and say, I don't like that, let's do that. We can't do that. So we have, in my mind, I probably made a mistake by allowing it not to be brought up and talked about in front of everybody so we could talk this out. Instead, Tanya can only tell you how she come up with the $15,000.
And just to let everybody know, as far as it's really immaterial at this point, because with the basis of the counteroffer, the $15,000 offer is deemed rejected. We're not bound to the $15,000 number anymore. So
I'll let you reject it.
Dave Halleck. Tony Cianci said that they weren't in violation of any of their duties, but I think they violated Section 1 of the contract. Just as a opinion, but I'm not an attorney. But Mark brought up the implication of what they said they were going to do with their initial presentation a while ago, and I agree. There's a lot of things that they said they were going to do or they're not doing today. But Tony Cianci's getting a bargain. He pretty much admitted when he was here that the loss of moisture in those greens were pretty much the reason why those greens failed. So $15,000 is a good number for him, I would think. I wouldn't have thought he would even sent this back. I would have thought he would say, okay, I'll pay the $15,000. But to ask for $15,000 back for a slice out of our non-operating income from a padded budget is ridiculous, I think. I agree that, they'll find that $15,000 one way or another. But you guys are spending, think about how much time you guys spend on golf-related issues at this board meeting, and I know it's a big slice of our budget, but most of these things, a lot of these things that are coming up are things that should be handled by the two general managers and not by the Board of Supervisors. A lot of these things shouldn't even come to this board, and if you're spending all this time and you're not happy with who you have, then you need to go out and shop it. And there's no violation of the contract by doing that. I think it might be a prudent thing to do, but I don't think this is. I think this is a good deal for Billy Casper. I don't think it's necessarily a good deal but a deal. That's what we asked for. I think if they're willing to pay that, that's fine. But amending the contract to put 100% liability on the subjective things about this, that's not going to happen. They'll never do that. I don't know if I'd waste my time going through that motion, but you can do what you want to try.
Virgil Elliott, resident. The business that I was in, whether I was issued a canteen, a vehicle, or my training officer signed for a training area, I was responsible and accountable for it. It come out of my pocket if I screwed it up. And that included when I signed for all the equipment in a company. One time, one unit was something over $300 million. One piece is missing, I pay for it. If it's tore up by negligence, I pay for it. And I think it's a shame that we pay Billy Casper $120,000 a year, and they have absolutely no responsibility or accountability to what the operation is. That's just my piece. I think we should hold them a little bit more accountable.
Thanks.
Shirley Schumann Allegre. The board has a big responsibility here. You're responsible to all of the district for the money, and I know you have the best interests at heart. I'm not questioning that. However, for us to sit here and have a settlement be for such a great amount less is pretty significant. And I'm not a golfer, so I'm not complaining about the fact that the golf courses were not accessible. My one question would be, does the $63,000 include the loss that we had of the property at that time? I feel it's a very difficult decision. I know the letter's been sent. I respect Tanya being able to get a number together from the conversations, but I hope that we're looking at the whole of the district and the fact that this isn't just a decision of letting the money go. This is a big decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment?
I do want to mention one other thing is I think from the language of this response from Mr. Chansey, I think it's pretty much stating that they're obviously stating that they're certain they didn't perform negligently, which to me says that if we're going to proceed down this road, then there's a potential for litigation. So I'm happy to review the contract and see what the specific requirements are, and we can determine whether or not if it's our position that they failed to perform under the contract, then we can respond and say, look, you've, based on our review of the contract, you failed to perform X, Y, and Z as required, and therefore you are responsible for the full amount. That we can take that position if that's what the board wants. But like I said before, as far as the $15,000 offer, this counter offer dissolves that. We don't have any responsibility to adhere to that $15,000 number anymore.
Okay. Could you do that research on the contract, and at the next meeting on the 9th, could you bring us back your findings and your thought, and we'll have another discussion to figure out where we want to go from there?
I'm good with that.
Any additional board comment?
Yeah, I'd have to say this is the one dumbest thing I've ever seen a company do. And I'm talking about Billy Casper. I mean, we gave him a chance to walk away.
I agree, Mark. We talk about it next meeting, and it's important to know what Dave gives us.
We spend so much time on golf in our meetings. It's absurd. It really is. But in any case, people want to bring it to the board, so here we are. Okay, if there's no further discussion, any add-on items?
None.
Petitions and communications.
I have no written petition or communication, but I believe there's
a gentleman here
that would like to speak.
Mr. Dezek,
yes.
I believe, that has some comments.
Members of the board, James Dezek. I'm not a resident of Sun and Lake. I'm a second-time member of Sun and Lake Golf. In the interim, when I rejoined, I played many courses throughout Central Florida, and that experience led me back to Sun and Lake. I think this is a wonderful facility. I'm more than happy with the golf course, the camaraderie of all the members, and I've enjoyed myself. My wife's health had changed recently, and we found ourselves looking for specialized care. Most of her doctors are on the coast, and at 1 week we had spent 3 trips with 12 hours of travel time. We decided at that point that we would like to move from the area. That being said, I would like to convert my full membership to the 5-month membership with a reimbursement for the amount, approximately $830 that would convert that to a 5-month membership. I'll take any questions anybody has, but I think I've said what I needed to say.
Any board discussion?
Is those figures correct, Jim?
Yes, $830 is the difference between a 5-month membership and a full annual membership.
Okay.
We, in the past, we've kind of struggled with policy within the district here as it pertains to the golf operations, and with the efforts of several board members and the golf operations, we're actually at the stage where we're ready to present a policy manual, be a working document, a living document. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we don't have anything in place that would allow a downgrade. People can upgrade, but nobody can downgrade. It puts this board in a very difficult situation, I think, to make certain exceptions. But I will go, and based on my colleagues and what their thought process is, whether it would be a $830 reimbursement, I guess, and not a credit. Correct, Jim?
Correct.
And I need to get your thoughts on it.
Do you need a motion?
No, I don't believe it's a motion.
Okay.
It's just discussion.
I think we should get something intact soon, but I would have no problem with giving $800 and some back for that, because he showed that just the problem that we have. But it's very important for us to work out, or you to bring something to us, so these questions don't keep coming up, and when they buy a membership, they know what it is. And I know we're in the process of doing that, right?
We are in the process, but I believe it's in place that this isn't allowed. So in the time the club's been operating, we have not refunded, a membership in the middle of it. We have a leave of absence policy, and unfortunately in Jim's case that doesn't apply because he's not returning, to the area. So I believe the procedure's in place. The real question, I guess, is just whether we think it's appropriate to allow downgrades in membership, because it is obvious that people can take out a yearly membership and have life happens, and where a 3-month or a 5-month membership would be, more appropriate. And I don't think the board wants us coming to you every time life happens to somebody and they want to downgrade their membership. So I think really the question is, we either think that once a membership's taken out, that money's obligated to the club, and the leave of absence policy can, fall into place, or we allow downgrades. It's one of those two. But I do believe there's something in place to handle this. I think it's just, what is new is that the seasonal's only been around 4 years. So the club there wasn't an opportunity to downgrade from a full membership because all they had was full memberships. But since this has come out, we haven't had this question come up. And then right after Jim had the request, we had another member that had, I wouldn't say a similar request, but also had a request to go from a full membership to 5 months.
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying we have potentially multiple requests on the table?
Yes. Well, I mean, if we set the precedent that we're going to let, someone downgrade, then yes, I'm certain there is another request to do that.
I believe she's here.
Yeah.
Oh, Carol.
My name's Carol Jones, and I'm a resident, and I have been a member of this club since 2005.
Can you just pick up the mic? Thank you.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Carol Jones. We've been a member, Nick and I, since 2005. And as you know, my situation changed this past year.
In October, I joined the club, a full member as a single, and I paid half of that October 1st, and the other half is due end of January. I sold our house, and I'm moving back to Michigan in March. So I'm asking the board to allow me to change my membership to a single 5-month, which would expire the end of February, and I would pay the additional amount due, which is, you'd have to check it, but I think it's like $786 that I would pay to become a single 5-month. I don't know if he paid the full year right up front.
So what Carol is, she's paid half of her membership so far, so when she's talking about adding the money, it's paying the difference between the half she paid up front and what a 5-month would be.
Yeah.
So it's the same as Jim, it's just Jim's paid all his up front, right. So he's looking to get money back.
Yeah, she's looking for the delta between.
Correct.
5-month and okay.
Listen, you can say, you know, I just want to say something about this. First of all, I'm sorry about your wife. Secondly, the board is here to look out for the best interest of all the people who live in this district. So somebody coming here and making an appeal to us, I think, there's nothing wrong with it. I would support both of your claims. They're very unusual circumstances, and you know what? I think it's the right thing to do.
I agree with Jim. If we're going to do this, this needs to be a policy. You know, we're going to be right back where we were a year ago, where all these exceptions were made, and at the time they were probably appropriate, but in retrospect, we had to undo a bunch of stuff. So if we want to do it, I don't care one way or the other, but I think it needs to be a policy. We're going to do it for you. We're going to do it for anybody. And you got to be, then you're going to get into, okay, well, what qualifies? Is somebody getting sick and going to the coast a problem? Okay, is that all right? What about if they just get sick and they don't want to play golf anymore? You know, you just got all sorts of permutations here, and you start opening Pandora's box, you're going to get into problems again.
Pete DeLongchamp, you know, I would agree with you, Dan, because if something isn't in policy, it's hard to refund money. I mean, when I've been a member here, I think this is my 10th year. First year I joined, they had an assessment, an initiation fee, which is quite a lot more than you're asking to get back. I was told at the time, because we asked, we said, you know, these initiation fees have been waived, put back on, waived, put back. What are you going to do with it? So we don't see that ever happening. Following year, it's gone. Now, I wasn't reimbursed my initiation fee. I just looked at it as I had to make a decision that year to join Sun and Lake Golf Course, which I did. And I lived with that decision. And I think that's what we do. Things happen, but it's really difficult to get into all these special circumstances, and unless it's already put forth in your membership policy to begin with. That's it.
I think I paid $2,000 too, Pete.
Yeah.
3,000. 3,000. It shows you how smart I was. Yeah.
Joe, anything?
I just am concerned with a precedent that can't be defined, if you will. I emphasize with Jim and his situation, and obviously with Carol and hers. But the question will be, for the next one, what qualifies, what doesn't. So, you know, I think the leave of absence policy creates a vehicle for a lot of situations. I'm just not comfortable with opening another can of worms we got to deal with maybe multiple times a year.
But that, I mean, I don't want to get into a argument over this. I would just say we're here for a reason. There's always going to be exceptions to a rule. That's why we're here, to make a decision based on the claims that the people are making. I don't see there being a problem, and I personally would not have a problem saying no if somebody came up here and I didn't agree with it. That's why we're here. Done.
I hate to keep coming up here every 15 minutes, but the last time Jim asked for it, we turned him down because we didn't think it was a good reason. I think it's a good reason this time. And he paid this whole year up front. He wouldn't have had to pay his second half until the end of January, and I don't think he'd be sitting here asking for a month's reimbursement. But in his situation, I think, and in Carol's situation, I think she's going to pay more because she's only paid half a year, and she just wants to convert it to a little something different. I think we've got a different situation, and you're always going to have this kind of stuff. But I'm like you, and I'm like Pete. I paid an initiation fee that I didn't get it back, but I think he's got a valid argument here, and until it's written as a policy, I mean, the book's still open on the policy. You can put it into policy, but now I think you guys have another tough decision to make as to whether or not his problem is he paid the whole year. He wouldn't even owe the second half until the end of this month, so for what it's worth.
Where do we go from here?
Does every one of these requests have to come to this board if we do that?
I mean, Jim brought up some things. It's not going to solve the problem right now that we're faced with, but we definitely need to address this. We'll probably address it in policy, and we'll probably address it if you want to do downgrades, or if that's a suggestion of doing downgrades to memberships. That would come up in next year's or this year's budget discussions in May or June. But we have to deal right now with what we have at hand. And can I ask a question, Carol? Is your intention to come back and hear? In other words, let me tell you where I'm coming from on this, because I hate to make exceptions to every single policy, but the policy for medical leave, for an example, allows to take a medical leave and then credit a membership the following year. In other words, you don't get a refund, but you would get credited that amount of money towards the following year's membership. If you don't want to answer this, it's okay, but is your intention to come back as a member here? And if so, would you be agreeable to, or if the board approves it, would you be agreeable to saying just take that money, that $700, whatever it is, the $800, and say, I'll apply it towards next year's 3 months membership or something, or do you not know that?
Originally, well, I really don't know.
Okay.
I've been looking, and just too many decisions.
Okay. You don't have to explain any more than that. I appreciate it. I totally appreciate it, and I understand the situation, so, okay, I had to ask the question.
I just don't know.
Okay.
I would like to, go ahead.
I have one question, if I may. I think I'm in the same area. Paul McAllister, I've been a resident here for 24 years. And I had a situation last year where I threw out my back for 2 months. I was given, according to the policy, I believe it is, I don't know if it's set down by Sun and Lakes or if it's set down by Casper, but this was a one-time only. One time only, I'm allowed, what do you call it, if you're injured or sick, you break a leg, or in my case, that's one time only, you get a credit for next year. And now, from now on in, according to this policy, from what I understand, I haven't given a definite answer, I'm out now. So if I happen to pull my back out again or whatever, it's a one time only that I've been told. Now, I'm not sure if I hurt my back or break a leg next year, I'm not looking for money back. I'm looking for, and I lost 2 months at $5.63 a day, and it cost me $4,800 for the membership, and I was given $365 back. That's fine with me. I was given credit, you got my money, and give me a little bit of off next year. But if it should happen to me next year, and all of a sudden I get one ticket to CAT, and I've already had it, and I don't get that again, I've paid over 100 grand since I've been here. I brought people here and everything else. And I think PR should be, this club should look at the people who are here, the ones that are giving and sharing, whatever. And I think I've done my job. To be all of a sudden one time and they don't get it again, that could be the policy that I think should change, that that person should be considered. If you have a doctor's certificate, what more do you want? That's all I'm saying. I think I'm kind of fitting in with the rest of the people that they're saying now, that they're injured or hurt and they're leaving. I've said mine, so I'd like to know, is it a continuation, or do you get one kick at the cat?
I believe correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, I believe that the policy was a one-time. However, you can come to the board if there's a situation that arises such as you've just described. I believe that's written.
That's correct.
I think it's actually written
that's
in the
new policy manual that
Yeah.
exceptions would be brought to the board. So if someone was here 2 years and was asking for their second medical leave, it would be considered differently than if someone was here 24.
And more importantly, I, just as an individual here on this board, would prefer that there's a policy there so we don't even have to deal with bringing it to the board.
I think that's what it would be. What? You guys got enough to do. As far as I'm concerned.
I don't, for every exception of the rule, I think it needs to be written and something that we have to work on.
I think you, Jim, and the board knows that, don't try to counter. You guys have all been around long enough to know what's going on. If somebody comes in there and he's got a cast on his leg, he didn't wear it for Halloween. He's got a broken leg. I can't play. So here's the doctor's certificate. Would I be considered for an extension of what I'm going to miss this year for next year?
And as I said, I think it's a discussion that we need to have.
But I checked it out last year and it said it's only one time. So when did that come up? Just out of curiosity.
The leave of absence or the exception policy?
I'm sorry?
The leave of absence, to my knowledge, has been around for quite a while.
I think he's asking when the new policy's coming out, when this policy...
Because when it happened to me, Jim, with all due respect, I was told that this is one time.
And it still is one time, but there's the ability, well, I'll read it exactly the way it's written, which should be approved at the next board meeting, because I have some extra things that have come up. But the way the leave of absence policy is written is... So there, as you said, a member may choose to take a medical leave, a one-time leave of absence per membership, and then at the bottom of the policy it says exceptions to this policy must be approved by the Sun and Lake Board of Supervisors.
Okay, I wasn't privy to that last part that you read, but
it hasn't gone out yet.
I guess it hasn't come out yet, I'm not privy to it. But just to let you know, sneak preview, I wasn't told that, so I'm just kind of clarifying. It's a question, you've responded, I got an answer, and I'm a happy camper.
Thank you.
Hopefully I don't get injured.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
I just quickly want to say I would be in favor of giving Jim and Carol their refund, because it's... I have a problem sometimes when they play and get hurt or have to leave and half the membership's gone or something, but I like it the same way we talked about with Billy Casper. I like that they're coming in and not wanting something by the month. They're saying, I'll pay my 5 months and I have this exception. So I'd be in favor of giving Carol and Jim their money back.
So we just need a consensus? Is that the way?
Somebody make a motion, because my understanding is that the requests have been denied, by Jim based on the initial request. So basically, what they're asking for is the board to reverse that. And so my recommendation would be to somebody make a motion and
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second.
Take a vote.
Chrissy?
Supervisor Gilpin?
Yes.
Supervisor Stiegel?
Yes.
Supervisor Branson?
No.
Supervisor Brooks?
Yes.
President Camp?
Yes.
And I think that once the policy revisions are done, the plain and simple fact is this is never going to go away. These are public meetings, and anybody that wants to can come up and make they can submit a request. So it's just whether or not the board is going to entertain them or not. Just say, policy is policy. Thank you for your request, but we have a policy that addresses this. And if there's, because basically that's what the people are going to be asking, or may happen in the future, is once the policy is set down, if they're not happy with the policy, they're going to be asking for an exception, and it'll be whether or not the board wants to grant exceptions.
Thank you. Any more petitions and communications? No? Staff reports?
None, oh, sorry. I believe Jim has a staff report, yes.
Yes, thank you, Tanya. Just wanted to follow up on some things. I did meet with the GPS company, DSG Tag, at the merchandise show in Orlando. I feel confident, but it's definitely not a guarantee that their attention to us and to our units is going to be better. They've committed to bring in 40 of their new refurbished units, not used units, to take our fleet up to 100%. They've committed to train our people to reinstall, so give us a stock of units on site, and have us be able to change out those units and get up to a 1 or 2% failure rate.
Haven't they committed to that before?
No, they haven't, and as I've talked to them, I did talk to the CEO instead of the director of sales, and the show does end today, so I did tell them that I wanted to get what they were going to do in writing, because I want to work with David to tighten this up, since we're in the service part of our agreement with them as opposed to the purchase. So the first year there was a warranty on the actual product. Now we're into more of a service maintenance agreement on the product, and I just want to work with David to tie it up. They definitely have a lot of a way to go to get my confidence back in them, but I don't know that we have another path right now where we sit.
How much longer is the agreement?
The agreement ends in December of this year. So, I mean, my goal and my goal and my hope is that they come through and the units perform, and that we can at least extend this through the life of the carts that we have now, which would be for 3 years, and then we will have gotten 6 years out of the units, and then we can see where we're at. Other than that, and I'll go through and then we can just go to questions. We have had good luck with our club sponsors that are tied to the GPS units. Allstate has indicated, Jessica Hartline has indicated that she'll renew for her $5,000 major sponsorship, which is great. 2 years ago she was a $1,250 sponsor and then we got her to go from $1,250 to $5,000. With a lot of work. We involve her in the Chicks for Sticks, just a lot of promotion, and Jessica makes it easy. She does a lot of community service. So, we advertise on the sports radio a couple times a week. We put out that she's involved in, the children's museums, all of her charities. And so we work as partners. I met with Bargain Carts, which last year they were a $2,500 sponsor. Becky has agreed to do $2,500, and she's considering $5,000. She was supposed to, get back to me today. Our members do buy carts at Bargain. We did start doing a $100 certificate in the restaurant for anybody who buys a cart from Bargain. And she was interested. We've got 3,000 Facebook followers, so we're promoting her on Facebook. They've just did a huge investment in Lake Wales. They've always owned Brewers carts in Lake Wales, which is east on Highway 60, but they just built a whole new facility there. And it's about 20 minutes closer, since I drove and met her at Brewers instead of the normal. So, we're working hard to get that to $5,000. Ridge Realty dropped their sponsorship this year, and we're Sun and Lake Realty, Jim Service, who's a member, is picking up that $5,000 sponsorship. So from commitments, we're at 12.5. If Bargain Carts goes with 2,500, we'd be at 15,000. If Bargain goes with that, Heartland Bank has verbally committed to. It's a $2,500 sponsorship, but they give $400 to the men, $400 to the ladies, and then $1,700 to us. And then also Robert's Tree Service, Tom Drake, we started his sponsorship in October. It was a $1,250 sponsorship. I expect him to renew this coming October, but that's too far ahead to predict. So right now, the sponsorship this year should be equal or grow from last year. And the monies we do bring in from the sponsorships does cover our service and maintenance agreement on the units. Rules and regulations, I need to get that tightened up. I've gotten a number of suggestions from some of the supervisors in the last few days that I need to work into the document and then get a consensus from everybody on the board, and also get a consensus on how we want to amend the document. So if we can just amend it by consensus, and I don't mean the important rules, amending it by consensus for rules like leave of absence, but like one of the things that's happening now is we've just gone to not having a blue stake for the handicap flag. So if that doesn't work, I want to make it to be as easy as just emailing the 5 board members and having 3 of the 5 say, yeah, it's fine if you reinstitute a blue stake. I don't want it to be too laborious to make changes. Some of the suggestions were adding the hours for the snack shack. A lot of normal things that aren't in the rules right now that we could just add. Our stump project is going well. We're down to about 4 holes working backwards, with about 2 or 3 other stumps that need to be done. We should be done with that by next week and have the contractor out of here. Earl's team is doing the best job at grading it right now, and then we'll be adding sod to finish off that whole process. Our stay and play is going really well. We're booked out basically through the middle to the end of March. We've got 1 or 2 weeks left in March. So Kay and Cindy are doing a great job with that. Our membership is continuing to trend up. As of today, we're $42,441 to be exact, ahead of last year at the same time. So that's obviously a great statistic for us. Earl has contacted 3 companies to come in to get bridges, bids on the bridges, sent them pictures, so that's in process. We had a familiarization trip last November with 12 golf riders, which is part of our involvement with the Citrus Golf Trail and the TDC. This weekend, Tim Baines, who's a sports writer for the Ottawa Sun in Canada, and Claudio DeMarchi, I probably butchered his name, but he's out of Ontario, Canada with the International Association of Golf Tours, and that's actually the largest golf tour in the world. So he's coming on Saturday and Sunday and playing with Tim and Ron Garl, and I'm set up to meet them for lunch on Saturday afternoon. Wednesday we host a Realtors Cocktail and Apps reception here on I believe that's the 31st, from 6 to 7. We've emailed out to all the realtors that we're continuing our free membership with a purchase of a property and a trail fee. So all of them have gotten an email. They've all been invited to the cocktail and apps party. And then we're also going to be hosting the Realtors Banquet. So when they come, I'll have a nice big sign at the door and a bunch of signage so they can't miss the fact that we have that free membership available. Directory should be coming out in the next week. Ray Brooks's, I thought your priorities for the course care were very good. So I think we could adopt those as written. If we wanted to wordsmith it, we could make it a practice bunker instead of the practice sand trap. But other than that, I thought that was very good. Earl's been here a little bit over a month, and I think we're already seeing a really positive impact from his abilities and guidance. Beyond that, he has, just as a general detail, he's going to be working on the range to sculpt the range and make the target greens more visible. So he's going to cut the range floor very short and the target greens longer, so that it's more of a better practice facility. And he's really trying to dive into the capital as time permits. We want to get our 5-year capital together. But he really wants it to be tight. He doesn't want to have, a project he doesn't want to bring a project into the capital at $200,000 when it could turn out to be a $260,000, capital item. So he's working hard on that. That's all I have. Are there any questions on any of the things I talked about? I know I covered a lot.
I got a few. I want this rules and regulation thing put to bed. It's ridiculous. We've only been talking about it for 2-3 months.
Are you referring to the policies?
Yes, policies. Okay. I'm sorry. I can't imagine why we can't get this thing out. So let's make that a priority if we could. The stumps that he's clearing on the course, does that include taking care of the trees on deer number 5? Right, deer number 5? That's off to the right side of just before the green?
It is being addressed, Mike.
That is being addressed as well? Okay. The bridges, I think I asked for that when I first got on the board, so that's 4 or 5 months ago. And we still can't get that. We can't even get an estimate of what the cost is going to be. Not good. And as far as the 5-year capital plan, I brought that up in September to all of you guys, saying that we're going to do it in February. So I expect it to be done, period. Figure out a way to get it done. I don't care about Earl.
Do you want it to be done well or just done?
I want it to be done well, but I told you in September that's what I want.
Well, we've had a lot we've had hurricanes and...
I don't care.
Well, that's great.
I know. I've got to have a 5-year capital plan so that we can look at it and decide what's right for Sun and Lake.
We're going to bring that to
It's not just golf, there's other things.
I'm sorry. We're going to bring that to the board in the last meeting in February, which is the 24th or 26th.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure he understood. It's got to be done.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I got.
Any further questions? No?
Jim, I just got one little one. You don't have to answer it now. 2 times this week I was approached by group leaders that have tea times. And they got their 2-month schedule. And in there the first month, and then the second month came and they changed the tea times down. They asked me that they can't make things only 3 weeks ahead of time. So what do we do when we move, say at 12 o'clock or at 10:30 tea time for a group, and then all of a sudden move them to 11? And you can get that and let me know, but I need to tell them, because if you can't make a tea time 3 weeks ahead of time, how do we know we're going to switch them unless it's a tournament? How do we know a couple months ahead of time? And just because that aggravates some of the people. So I just get that for me and I'll be able to tell them. Okay?
I'll check into it. I suspect it's a large hotel group is what's created the shift. So if somebody has a 10:15 tea time and we have a block that's open from say starting at 9:30 and they wanted to bring 40 people, that would push the 10:15 tea time to 10:40, or we would have to tell those 40 people not to come. which is an option, but you're going to lose,
Yeah.
it's a whole group, so you would lose that, whatever,
Okay, well,
$1,600 if you did that. But I'll get back to you with actual, but I'm kind of virtually certain, those are the people that we let book ahead.
Okay.
And just one
If they're
last...
booking ahead, why are those tee times, why do they only start at 9? I guess I'm confused.
Well, in other words, so say we had, just to make it simple with the 5 of you, say Dan had a group of Sun and Lake members that were playing from 8:45 to 9:30 on deer with the tee time course, and then you had a group that played from 10:30 to 11:30, so now there's 9:30 to 10:30 is open for the hotel group, but if they come in and need an hour and a half of tee times, then we're going to have to, and we want to get their business, we're going to have to move one of those or both of those member groups to fit that in, or send them to some other club that can fit them in.
I mean, that makes sense to me, and I can't imagine why moving my particular tee time 15 or 20 minutes is going to make all that big a deal.
No, I mean, I
understand what you're saying. You got to do that.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, a member's being displaced by a non-member, and you just have to decide how the revenue balances against the revenue of the membership.
I guess it depends on how much pain are we willing to take in terms of getting the exact tee time we want for a minimum payment as of dues. We're sitting here paying, I don't know what it is, $3,000 or $3,200, and we're acting like we're on a private golf course. And I'm guilty of that as everybody else. But we have to make some accommodations for outside play, particularly this time of year.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and we all get used to what we get used to. And so, I mean, the one thing we do want to realize is that 36 holes with 300 members, we have better tee time access than the most exclusive clubs in the country. 150 members per 18 is like the lowest number you can, possibly get. So that's something we really need to promote to people that come in for membership, because to be able to get your time that you want pretty often isn't something that's common, in a private setting. Because if you got one golf course and one first tee and you're on 18 holes with 300 members, you're not going to hit the time you want. You're going to do it within a couple hours, but you're not going to hit it within 30 minutes.
That's fine.
The only thing I do have, just that I did miss, was just want to make sure everybody knows that Monday night's a member appreciation night. We've got entrees at 25% off, and we've also brought in a DJ. So I hope we can pack the place and have a lot of fun.
Thank you, Jim. General Counsel report, David.
All right. As discussed at the last meeting, Ayala, there was movement. Our attorney filed the motion for reconsideration regarding the Deceptive and Unfair Trade Practices Act claims, which the second DCA missed, in their prior briefs. So hopefully we'll have a response to that. That basically what that'll do is if it goes favorably for us, then those will be dismissed, and we'll just have the one negligent claim remaining, and that should hopefully expedite. With only one claim remaining, we can hopefully expedite the closure of that. A while back, we had a discussion with the county about the Unit 12 lots. There's, I think there was at the time, there's over 1,600 now. I think with the escheatment process, we're down to a little over 1,500 lots there. We were talking about doing a group foreclosure in order to basically the county is prevented. The county can't if the county wants to foreclose on the unpaid taxes, they have to do it individually by individual lots, and with 1,500 lots, it's cost prohibitive to do that. The district, however, we've had a discussion with Bob Germain and we can group those all, since they're all owned, the majority of them are owned by a single owner, we can group them all into one and do one big foreclosure. Based on the available information, it's currently estimated that such a uncontested group foreclosure is not likely to exceed $20,000 in costs. We have not moved forward on anything yet because we wanted to bring that to the board and let you know that that's what we're currently potentially looking at if we want to take those steps to foreclose those lots. If we do foreclose them, once they're foreclosed, we can, if we're the successful bidder, which, if we're not, great. That means someone decided to come and buy, and we're looking at $3.5 million worth of unpaid assessments that we'd be foreclosing. So if we, either A, they would get bought at foreclosure sale, in which case we would recoup all those costs, or potentially, or they would belong to the district, then we could actively go out and look to to sell them ourselves. Or, like I said, our discussion with the county is if we can't find a buyer as they're currently platted, which is their small lots, they're like 50 by 100 or something like that, basically mobile home lots. If we can't find a buyer as platted, we could vacate the plat and turn it into one large parcel of land, which we could then, either turn over to the county or allow the county to reclaim for taxes. And with it being a single parcel, they wouldn't have to go through the major expense of 1,500 lots. We'd have corrected that for them. And the talks that we've had with the county is that they may be, or for that to happen, they would have to be amenable to, if we turn it into that single parcel, and then they go and find a buyer, we would recoup our costs for, providing that service to them. So, nothing is, other than the research and the meetings that we've had, we haven't spent any money now, but with that $20,000 number, that's what we're wanting to let you guys know, and we'll probably put it up on the next board meeting for a decision to be made if we want to start, if any further work is going to cost money, to start that project, if that's something you're interested in us doing, or, it can continue to sit.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying you would bring it up for discussion, not for resolution.
We can discuss it now if you want, or we can, at the board discussion time, or if you're, basically that's what we're trying to find out is this something that board is interested in us pursuing, or, should we, at this time, or do we want to set it for some time down the road, or not at all?
The only reason I ask that is I'm not sure everybody on the board has the details of what we're referring to, Unit 12.
Correct.
We've had some discussions. I've had discussions. I know Michael's had discussions about it, but I don't think collectively this board has the detail to do a formal discussion. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, well, we can.
I'm up to see.
You're up to speed on that, all? How about yourself? No? Up to speed on?
A little bit. Not comfortable.
All right, well, but then I'll put something together. I'll get with Tanya. We'll put something together as a discussion item for the next board meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Right before the meeting, I gave you guys handouts for the one Labrador owner lot. This lot is at 4209 Ponce. It is currently under foreclosure, and I have received communication from the opposing counsel, who is basically seeking a reduction in the late fees in order to try and come to a settlement agreement and start making, we talked about, generally the district accepts payment plans that don't exceed 12 months. The opposing counsel has indicated that they are willing to enter into such a payment plan to bring this current, but you'll see that there, on top of assessments, there's also a significant amount of code enforcement liens. When we do our foreclosure, we don't generally foreclose. In fact, we almost never foreclose code enforcement liens because, if it were to go to foreclosure sale, mainly is the number one is a priority. Our assessments have priority over everything except for county taxes. Our code enforcement liens do not have that same priority, and so if there's anything in between, we can't do a foreclosure that way. Plus, if it goes to foreclosure sale, we generally want to make sure we recoup our assessments, and then if anybody were to buy that, they would be on the hook for those code enforcement liens, because those code enforcement liens are in fact recorded. If we do a settlement agreement, though, we want this property brought current. At least that would be my recommendation. And so right now, we're in the attorney's fees. Just to let you know, the attorney's fees are showing at $210. They're more like $1,800 with all the stuff that's gone back and forth over the past couple of weeks with this lot. So they're basically asking for a reduction of, the way I see it, the assessment late fees and the code enforcement late fees amount to $3,300. Attorney's fees have gone from $210, basically added an additional $1,500, $1,600 of that. So the actual reduction would be, say, $1,800, $1,700 total if we were to enter into a payment plan. So if we proceed with the foreclosure and we take back the lot, our code enforcement liens disappear, because you can't have a lien on property that you own. So if this went to a foreclosure sale and no one bid on it, then we lose out on that money. There's no way to recover it. So basically what it boils down to is, does the board want to consider owning this lot and then potentially selling it? It is a corner lot on the corner of what's that cross street? Ponson, but I don't know what that other crossroad is, but and it's a rather large corner lot, but I don't know that we'd be guaranteed to recoup all this money if we were to be the owner and potentially sell it down the road. So basically what I'm looking for is some direction. Is the board willing to entertain the request by the opposing counsel to grant a reduction in the late fees in order to enter into a settlement agreement and bring a property current?
So you're talking about a reduction of the late assessments and the late code enforcement?
Not the assessments. Yeah, the actual the late fees. Yes, where it says assessment late and code enforcement late. That totals $3,300.
Yeah, 848, 30, and the 2451.
Correct.
And they would give us everything else.
Correct.
Plus the additional attorney.
Plus the additional attorney's fees, exactly. And we'd space it out for a 12-month payment plan. Or we can proceed with foreclosure.
How much do we get up front? I mean, is this an attempt just to back us off? I mean, when we do payment plans, there would be a consent judgment involved. So if they miss a payment, then we don't have to go back and re-foreclose. We would get a judgment entered that says the lot now belongs to us. Okay. So, or alternatively, I mean, it didn't pop into my head until just now. If the district's interested in owning the lot, I can put forth look, we'll sign the property over to the district, and we can stop. Then we don't have to go through the expense of continuing the foreclosure. So basically, that's what the main question is does the district want to own the lot and try to sell it, or does the district want its money for the assessments over time? It would seem to me that the best course for us to take is to get the consent judgment and give them a payment plan. That way we're done. Right?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, yes. To give them a chance to get it brought current.
Okay, so would you need a motion to accept that?
No, I mean, I'm happy I'm happy with a consensus if everybody is on the same page to move forward with that proposal.
Oh, I agree with that. Totally agree with that.
Yep. Okay.
I want the lot back.
I think it's important I was glad to see you give us your opinion, Dave, because that's what I was waiting for.
You done, David?
That's
okay. General Manager's report, Tanya?
Yes, to continue what David was mentioning about our meeting with Highlands County. David did not participate in this meeting. It was myself and Mr. Gilpin and Ron Hanley and then some other county staff. But basically, the Unit 12 discussion was part 2 of that meeting. Part 1 of that meeting was to find out the county's plans on selling the vacant lots that they currently own in Sun and Lake. And so a decision was made that the county would proceed in taking lots to surplus to their Board of County Commissioners on an agenda, they think, at the end of February. And then they are going to list these properties for sale. But they're only going to start with the properties that are in the Unit 16 area, Deer Run, that they own. And they only have enough staff or the staffing situation there to list maybe 25 properties at a time to their website. Currently, the county owns about 50 lots in the Deer Run area currently. Within the next year or two, they will own about 450. So right now, the focus is on the marketable properties, and the county feels that those are the properties that they should focus on. Anything west of Cortez, they're not going to focus on right now, because it does take substantial staff time to put together this information for the Board of County Commissioners and then advertise this for bids is what they're going to do. So persons interested in any of these lots they have advertised on their website can submit a bid on one single lot or multiple lots that they have listed. So they might only have listed 25 at first. The next month might be 50, so they'll just continue in this process until they get through a majority of the lots they own. So this will take some time.
These are the interior lots on Deer Run.
These are, yes, they are some interior lots. Some of them are
Some of them are
interior.
golf course lots, so some of them.
There's no golf course lots right now. There's only 50 or so that the board owns, but a majority of the lots that the Board of County Commissioners currently own is to the west side of Deer Run, which is, remember the zoning R3 that we've talked about? Those are where the majority is.
Yeah, it's the backside of Pebble Beach.
Yes, that's correct.
This
Yes.
is Unit 16, right?
Unit 16, yes.
The units that they put on the website, how are they zoned? I mean, what kind of house can people build on them if they buy it?
In Unit 16, we have two scenarios. We have an R1 zoning and an R3, or it's an R1A. I'm not sure.
There's a
which
big
it
difference
is.
in the two, right?
There's a big difference.
So
You
they're
have-
going to sell, and again, I'm not, just want to understand, they could sell lots to people who can build small houses.
Well, there's 1,000 square foot minimum in Deer Run for lots that don't have the deed restriction on them.
Are we happy with that? I mean, are we happy that they're selling lots that potentially could have?
I believe that a majority of the lots the county currently has or will have is going to have the deed restriction on it, but I don't know until we get a map laid out and kind of see where that happens. But there's a 1,000 square foot minimum. Now in R3, which is a multifamily, you could build a duplex on those. So it just depends on where the lots are located that
And
they're
these
going to
lots are
sell.
already they're available on the website, or they're
Not
going
yet.
to be?
Not
They're going-
yet. I think it'll be
before
about
they do
3
that, we should find out what the specifics are on the lots. Because we don't want 1,000 square foot homes, I believe.
But we don't own the lots.
Yeah, we don't own the lots.
Well, but that was the conversation that we had last meeting about talking to them on the rezoning, correct?
Correct,
No.
yes. I mean, that is correct. But Unit 16 is very complicated. We cannot change an R3 zoning to an R1 zoning. What that means is that if you own it, you can agree to change it, but we don't own those lots.
We're going to have a whole bunch of problems if they sell a lot and people start building 1,000 square foot homes on them. We got to figure out a way, David, somebody's got to figure out a way that doesn't happen. Otherwise, we're going to be eventually down the road having some seriously upset people.
You can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, this was the discussion that I had at the last meeting specifically when we were talking about 1,000 square foot homes as well as even 750 square foot homes.
Right.
And I was very concerned. I expressed my concern at that time about, let's say, smaller homes being built there. And, it's nice to get them on the revenue stream for assessments and whatnot, but I'm not sure with all of the other things that might come along with it, it's good for our community. But our hands are tied. The county owns it. If they don't want to rezone it, we're stuck. Am I correct, David?
Yeah, aside from what we talked about, which is potentially where we change the designation of every R1, every R1A, every R2 lot.
I thought there was I thought there was a discussion, though, when we started this past summer. I thought there was a discussion of 1,600 to 2,200 square foot, that discussion, and that didn't end up well. But I also thought that the county was willing to look at like a 1,200 square foot
That's correct.
agreement.
Yes.
But we don't see that yet. Right now, they're still at 1,000 or 750 square feet. So do we have any feeling for whether they will rezone that to at least 1,200 square feet? I mean,
well, I'd say as far as them rezoning it, no, I don't think they're voluntarily going to rezone it. The discussions we had was creating new zoning definitions, like going from an R1 and then we're going to create an R1 SNL designation. And that R1 SNL designation would have a different minimum square footage. And then that would be, the county would have the ability to apply that to every R1 lot in the district or every R1A lot in the district. But they cannot, if they start coming in and start selectively, they can't selectively do it.
You can't, I thought that you could do it on, like, Unit 16 as a whole. Did we not? I missed that, I was wrong?
We don't have, let's say, then if we don't own the lots, we don't have the ability to do anything to them, correct?
We can request.
All we can do is request the county, take some action.
it is, and I understand, it's totally up to them as to what they want to do. All we can do is put a request into them and hope that they see what our thought process is here for the community.
Correct.
And so, I guess we maybe should look to a plan of maybe rezoning at least 1,000 square foot minimum, something upward. I mean, I'm not looking to have containers converted to homes out there. That's not going to make me real happy, nor will it make the community, the people in this community, happy. I just don't, I know our hands are tied, but at the same token, we need to put our heads together to see how we can work with Ron and the county to do something. We can't just let it sit.
And that's a good idea. We did not request of the county to consider zoning change, but that is certainly something I can do. Because we talked about it as a board, creating a new SNL, R1, R1A, and that is an option, but we would have to take that to the Board of County Commissioners. But what I could do is request of the county, but they can only do that for the lots that they currently own, and where the zone, they only own 50 or so right now, but they're going to own 450. So I can certainly request that, but it doesn't encompass the entire Unit 16.
Well, they only own roughly 50 units
Right now.
in
Right now.
16,
In 16.
but not in Sun and Lake. They own a lot of
They
lots
currently
in Sun and
own
Lakes.
over 1,200 in
Right.
Sun and Lake. That will be over 1,600 within the next few years. Yes.
I thought when we were here last meeting that Ron got up and said he would be open to having that conversation. Did he not?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he
But
is.
that was for the consideration of creating SNL, creating its own SNL R1 and R1A to increase that square footage minimum. So if that is what the board still wants to consider, I'm happy to do so, and we can start going through that process.
Yeah, this, just to let you guys know, this process is going to take, 8 or 9 months, that they said, to get these. And I know Ron told me they're very willing to work, especially in that area that we're talking about right now, to bring them up, because they want to get them sold, they want to keep the people happy around them, but I think where we have the major discussions and problems is on the other side of Cortez. And they're not at all interested.
No, they're not.
I mean, that's, but from what I gathered at the meeting, but they totally control it, but I think they're going to work with us. I was
They're gonna
very
be open.
encouraged.
Yes.
And I think Tanya was too at our meeting there. First thing when they start squabbling a little, and we have to get back to the idea that we got to get these lots available. And I think they're willing, because they're gonna own them. They're gonna probably sell them. We won't be able to get too involved with it, but we're hoping to.
The sooner we get started, the sooner we get finished. So
Yeah,
I think
and that's what I
entirely
stressed, Dan.
appropriate to go right now.
That's what I told them. I said we need to get these lots. If we stand there and just look at them, it's going to be another 2 years. So.
And to President Camp's point, if let's say they sell 20 of those lots, some of them are zoned R3, some of them R1, and there are the square foot minimums would apply in that
Yeah,
cell.
we need to,
So
we need to change it.
We need to protect this community.
Yeah.
I think the only way to do that is to recommend what David has proposed as an S&L change for the entire unit, so we can cover our bases throughout the entire section of the community.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Let's get it done.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a couple other things. We mentioned bid number 17-13 on the drainage remediation. We received 5 bidders yesterday, and bid number 17-12 for the assessment study, we received 2 proposals on Wednesday. So staff has not had time to review that, but we'll be bringing that information to the board very soon.
It's encouraging to see that many bids coming in, responses based on what we've seen in the past. That's very encouraging.
And I do have a sample letter for the front entrance sign, so if you'd like to take a look at this, and we will discuss this during the budget process for this upcoming summer about the possibility of putting some new lettering. This was Mr. Brooks, so I'll put this up here.
We don't have the money now. We'll talk about it for the budget.
During the budget process, yes.
I'm good. I love it.
Only 2 signs a year.
By the way, I can't say that. Go ahead.
Unfinished business?
None?
New business?
None?
Wow, this is good. Committee reports?
No committee reports.
All done. Okay. Public comment. This is the fun time.
What is this? Where are we in this?
Who's that guy? This is the first time I heard of this SNL, David?
Yes, sir. I'm just kidding.
You're supposed to have your phone off. Oh. Anyway, this SNL designation for zoning, that's the first time I'd heard of that. I mean, why don't, and I agree, we need to force feed that. Wouldn't that still apply to anything that's sold after we apply that?
Yes, it would be a
Well,
complete.
then why don't we do that and get that done? Because even the property that they currently have now, once it's sold, then that would still, I mean, it would be like...
It'll apply to everything. It'll be the problem is, like I say, it's a great idea in theory, but we have all we can do is propose it.
Yeah, but
the county is completely.
But we can do that ourselves without the county, can't we?
No.
We can't
cannot
do that?
Ourselves.
But can we do that separately ahead of all this property movement?
Nope. It would be a new zoning classification that the county would impose on all the properties.
Okay, now, one other thing here for David. Re-educate me now on foreclosures. You were talking about the Unit 12 foreclosure that you and the county would foreclose together?
No. We would foreclose it. We would foreclose the district assessments. The district has the ability to foreclose its assessments, and our assessments take priority over everything except for county taxes.
Okay, I didn't think we were foreclosing on lots anymore. I thought we were foreclosing selectively on properties that had homes on it, but I noticed in the last check, the last report, that there was like $12,000 in foreclosures for you guys, and I just wondered, it looked like a big number. Did we change our attitude and we're now foreclosing on lots? Wouldn't that just going to go to the county and we weren't going to foreclose on any of those?
We've been foreclosing on lots that we think are either have a beneficial interest to the district or some part of a long-term plan.
We're not going to get back with where we're just at foreclosing unilaterally on everything that was in the rear.
Everything we
foreclosed.
foreclosed.
That number got so daggone high. It was like, $750,000 one year or close to it for foreclosures. But I just wondered, this Unit 12, is it legal? I mean, is Hometown America interested in that at all? Would it be legal for the county and Sun and Lake and Hometown America to discuss about, hey, look, this is all going to come, and it's right adjacent to you. It's it's platted for the type of structures that you're going to put in there. I know one time when John Graytech was still there, he was interested in it, but the board wasn't. They had a problem with John Graytech, and they didn't want to talk to John about anything. But could we enter into some kind of discussion, or at least call them and say, hey, what you guys going to be ever going to be interested in that? Look at this. Look what you could do. You could expand.
I mean, conceivably, but like I say, it's not our property right now. You know, we don't own it. So.
Well, the county owns a bunch of it, doesn't they? I mean, we can.
Unit 12 is owned almost exclusively by a single LLC, I believe. DF.
Yeah, whatever it is.
That's what we would be foreclosing on.
Right. But since it's going to happen, I mean, even ahead of time, getting ahead of the game, wouldn't it be maybe prudent or smart to even approach those people and talk to them about it?
I guess, yeah, potentially.
I don't think it'd be a bad thing to do. Okay. One other thing. In a recent meeting, I noticed that we're not printing out the check register that comes with the financial report. But and I guess it's the fact that we just didn't want to print all that paper. But hopefully you guys are still going, and it's still available on the district website. And hopefully you guys are going in there every month and looking at that check register, because, you know, the main responsibility of the board is to control the funds generated by the district. And if you don't look at that check register every month, because it's one of the best tools you have, and without seeing the expenditures in the micro, you can't. It gets lost in the macro of the financials, because it identifies unusual activity. It ID'd subdividing projects to avoid bidding, and expenditures beyond limits of authority, and all kinds of stuff. And that's where I picked up that $12,000 bill when I looked at it this week. There's a $17 check written to a guy that's been dead for 5 years, and I don't know how that happens, but in engineering fees are $13,341, but the summary shows $4,200, and it's probably there's this entry there for $4,200, but it's a great tool for you guys, because if you see a big number, I mean, there's not a month that went by, and Tanya can probably vouch for that I didn't have a question on something that showed up in that check register. It's the best tool you got, really. It identifies unusual activities and things that say, whoa, wait a minute, we got a $20,000 limit of authority, and here's a check written for $19,995, and the next day there's another check written for $200 to the same vendor. So it's a good thing to look at. I hope you don't not look at it, because we're not printing it every month. So just consider that.
Thank you. Any more public comment? Discussion to and from the board?
I do have a question. I guess I'm the newest guy on here, me and Ray. I'm not sure why we're having these meetings here as opposed to the community center. I hear lots of kitchen noise and stuff going on, not necessarily so much today, but is there a reason beyond?
I think Mike can
I moved it here, Dan, because it's better. Now it probably can be changed but I think that's up to the board if you want to change it. But it was moved here. I know it clears up stuff that's going on there
in the summer. In the summertime with the summer camps, we moved it here. Correct? Probably June, starting in June.
Yeah. But it just
and then it was continued from there. But we certainly don't have to have meetings here year round. Summertime I would highly recommend it, just because it's conflicts with the programs over there in the summer, but it's up to the board.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's a distraction to hear the noises. There wasn't much today, but the last meeting, I think two of the waitresses were having an argument about something. And while that might be fun to listen to, it's kind of distracting for me.
I guess we're all different. I didn't realize that there was, of course, I'm not paying,
But just curious.
I mean, I don't want to make a unilateral decision as to whether it'll be here or not. I think that should be, what everybody feels comfortable with. I have to believe that it takes a little more time to set up the AV or the audio here than it does at the community center, because everything is pretty much piped in there, correct?
Well, we would be using the system, so.
With the external portable speakers? You're not going to use the
acoustics in that building, which is why we bought the portable system, is it doesn't, something's off about it, and we have tried to fix it, and this system works. We decided to go with the portable system that works the best.
So we have a system over there that doesn't work properly?
No, it works. It just doesn't work for speaking. It works more for music and
Okay.
audio.
Because I remember way back when I was commuting back and forth, I thought they put a pretty expensive audio system in there for that purpose. Okay. Just out of curiosity. I mean, I would move to say, if the board wants to, go back to the community center, with the exception of in the summer, because I know they have the summer camps there. But that's, like I said, either way for me, it doesn't really matter.
I don't really care. I was just curious, and it can be distracting, and people have to be working in the kitchen if you're going to serve lunch. And if our meetings go long, then we have had the situation where we had a banquet going on across the deal.
I don't care either way, but I do know that they've been using it on Friday mornings now for something else, but it really doesn't. I know Jim, the only person I heard that had a concern was Mr. Kurtzborn, but that's the only person, and so I don't care. It's not a big deal.
I've had 3 or 4 people ask me why.
Did they ask you why because they didn't like it, or they just ask you why?
Yeah, they asked me why.
Okay.
Because they didn't like it.
Okay.
I don't care.
Just a recommendation, what we could do is go ahead and we're going to have a special meeting here on Tuesday for the kitchen renovations. Have the February 9th meeting here, and if there's consideration from the board, we can re-advertise a location for the February 24th meeting to be at the community center and continue that until the first summer program is in place.
Yeah. Why don't we just look at the calendar over
Just look
there
at the
and see
calendar?
what's available and before we even advertise.
Fridays are always available, except for during summer.
And I can say that there's already a conflict in this room for March 8th. Jim?
Yeah.
Is that the right date, March 8th? So,
conflicts with St. Patty's Day.
okay, we would have to move,
That day.
finding out, recently I was going to talk with Mark on this, finding this out, we would have to move the meeting anyway to the community center. So,
Why don't we get together and see
Sounds
what
good.
we have for a schedule, and then just make the decision. Any further discussion between the board?
Yeah, I got some. I got another handout. I'm good with handouts.
I do.
Pass that
Can I
down.
jump in and ask a question here? I know I'm out of order, but it's a single question. The billboard. Are we doing anything with that money that we got, the $10,000?
yes, we are. We are hoping very soon to have 3 quotes from local builders, and after Hurricane Irma, we couldn't find anybody. And now we finally have some interest from a couple of local contractors. So because the price is less than $25,000, we need 3 quotes, and that's been the most difficult process throughout the last 4 or 5 months, is to find 3 quotes. So we're very close, we believe. We've had a couple of interest even this week.
Okay, great.
So we have 1 right now, formally, or 2? You have 1. Okay. So we're very close.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks.
I have a few things. Somebody asked me why the color of the sign, there's something else. The color of the sign going into the maintenance facility was a different background than all the other signs that we have. Just thought I'd throw that out. I could believe it's white as opposed to everything else is yellow. I couldn't answer that question.
Mike Hurley.
Somebody said something to me. You did you hear it?
Yeah, I heard it.
Okay.
As a temporary sign, we put it up because...
Oh, that's a temporary one?
Yeah,
Okay,
for now.
that's fine. That answers it. So I assume that...
I think I told you that, no? That you didn't ask that question
No, you
already?
just got it.
Okay.
The permanent sign's going to be yellow.
Yeah.
Okay,
It'll
good.
look just like the others. We put that up because all the deliveries and stuff
Yeah.
were going down to whoever.
Okay.
Do we have a permanent sign planned for that building? I thought that was the permanent sign. No?
We don't have a permanent sign plan. That's fine.
Okay.
No, we don't have a plan, but that's just a temporary, that was a temporary sign, so we had an address so people knew where to go.
Okay.
I mean, it was like a couple.
So is it going to stay there, or is it's temporary? Okay. Let's go to the next thing. I know that the bocce court and the shuffleboard court was approved by the board sometime last year. So I asked for a little bit of information on it because I was just curious more so than anything else. And the budget that was allocated for the bocce courts and the shuffleboard will get us this picture, which is, that is the bocce court, correct? And this is how it's going to look on our facility. And I took a ride yesterday with Mike and with Tenille, and we went over to Tanglewood, and we looked at their facilities. And I'm not advocating that we have to have the same type of look or anything like that, but what I saw over at Tanglewood compared to what I see on this picture, I have to tell you, I think we're making a serious mistake. If we can't do it right, then I would say we shouldn't do it at all, because we're wasting money by doing this. It will accomplish very little. And my thought process would be to properly price out either shuffleboard or bocce, just do one maybe of the two, and do it correctly. And if we have to wait and take this money and save it for a little bit of time till next year, no, that's what we have to do. But I think if we do it, we should do it correct. And I don't believe, looking at this picture, that that's correct in my mind. And no fault of anybody. This is what, they had to work with financially. There's just not enough money. So we're going to put something in, and then if it works, what are we going to do then? So I thought I'd bring it up to you guys, because I think if we put this, it's going to go right by the tennis courts and the pickleball courts. And it's, I believe it's already staked out.
It's staked out, yeah.
And it's just, first of all, if you put them both in that area, you can't expand any of them, because I don't know how you would have to do it. So that would be a waste of money right there. And they pointed out to me, as Tanya mentioned earlier, the pickleball, we put in 8 courts initially. I don't know how that came about, but we put in 8 courts initially, and we've got 500 and some odd members. So that was a rip-roaring success, but we did it right. And if we're going to do shuffleboard and bocce, there's another name for bocce. What is it?
Well, there's another game called Petanque.
There you go. Yeah, these actually on the picture are the other game balls. But when we were over at Tanglewood yesterday, there was nobody on the courts. Now, and then about 5 to 10, or 10 to 10, they all started coming out of the woodwork. Guys with their shuffleboard, I don't even know what they're called, things to do shuffleboard. All the people are coming with their little balls to play bocce. So obviously we figured out they had leagues at 10 o'clock. So it was very popular over there, and the courts are being used. So I just think we ought to, we're trying to sell Sun and Lake. I look at this, and I'm not very proud of it. So I think we ought to do it right. So I don't know how you guys feel.
I would like you to continue working on it, Mr. Brooks, and I will do what you recommend.
I think you should take that committee. You should form your own committee.
I can do
some research and get together with Michael and
I can do
come
that.
up with a plan.
I just don't want to spend, how much money is it right now? 30?
We had 15 that was allocated for me to do whatever I thought.
Yeah, I just don't want to spend the money now.
And then I had 3 to do patching.
We'll do it.
I mean, you guys agree that this is not something that we want?
I don't know, I want you happy, and I think you know more about it than I do.
You got to go over to Tanglewood and see what they got. It's very impressessive.
Very impressive.
Can I
Very
suggest something,
impressive.
right?
Yeah.
I'd like to see done.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I didn't realize until yesterday the numbers that we have for the pickleball and stuff. I mean, when Tennille told me, I said, wow, I mean, you know. The way I like to do it is take the 15,000 that we have, okay? Move the fence out, take down those trees, and make the area wider. Why invest money when we're gonna do, you know, basically do the same thing? I mean, when we went over there yesterday, I think there were 8 courts. So
Yeah,
we
8 of
need a
each.
lot more room. So if we have the 15, why not open it up now, and then next year, put the courts, you know, in that area, but prepare it now, and we don't have to spend the money next year for preparing it. It's all prepared.
Here's what I would say to that, as a committee of 1, soon to be at least 2, as I'm going to volunteer you, I think we ought to get somebody who knows, I mean, an engineer, no offense, somebody who knows what they're doing, and show them the area that we want them to come up with and draw a plan. And it could be a long-range plan. It could be, we're going to do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, whatever it is, but let somebody tell us how much land we need to do what we think we need to do.
That's exactly what I...
And if that means taking down the trees and expanding the fence, fine. But I think we need a little bit of professional help.
Good with that?
I can't
I'm on
draw.
board with that, 'cause that's...
You comfortable with that, Michael?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's it.
Go for it, Ray.
Is that okay? Oh, do we want to, can we finalize this thing so we can get it out of here?
I don't know what it is.
I think
This is are we good?
Yeah.
The same-
Other
the
that Jim
priority?
recommend changing maybe, but I don't know if it makes any difference.
And who's going to communicate this to Casper?
I can send it to Casper. Do you want to change it to bunker on the bottom, or does it matter?
I have
Doesn't
sand
matter.
trap, you want
Perfect.
bunker, that's fine.
Okay.
But when you communicate it to Casper, if you would send us a copy, CC us
I'll
on that,
copy you,
I appreciate
yeah.
it.
Michael, I actually, Tanya's gone. I asked Tanya yesterday, but maybe you can enlighten me a little bit. Where the maintenance facility is, the new maintenance facility, and Drew's here, so maybe he can even answer it. Where the new maintenance facility is, you have Columbus Ave. You had where the old driveway went in, and where the
Telephone building.
well, it's telephone. It's the Connect or whatever. It's not Comcast. It's the other one, CenturyLink. So it was all torn up, the road there. Then the drive going in had, and I don't know what you call that, but it's the clay based that they use for when you're putting a foundation in, that orangey colored stuff. And it really looks nice, because after it rains, it has like ruts like this, and you know, we just had some paving done at the entrance at the other end. Why did we not at least pave where they tore out the gutter and everything, or the curbing that leads in there? And what is our plan? Because I was told we don't have money to do this.
Well, our plan is to move the humps further towards the
mounds.
The mounds towards the telephone building. So what they tore off is our plan is to do it in-house, or whenever we can afford it, is to move those mounds further up and clean all that area up.
Okay, so you're going to expand the driving range.
Exactly.
Okay, and that precludes you from doing, obviously, the work to the road?
Right, for now.
Yeah, they were...
Drew can explain that. That was in his plan.
Now, is that budgeted? Or are we going to wait until next year for this?
You talking about the expansion of the driving range or the alterations?
Both.
The driving range was not part of any changes to the driving range other than the shifting the mounds for the new bulk bins. The rest of that was not included in this budget for the maintenance facility. But we were planning on doing it in-house as much as we can. It was part of the project to remove the drive, old drive going in. The dirt they brought in was just basic fill dirt that they had.
Fill that area.
I don't think we wanted them doing any finish work to it because we were planning on doing it hopefully this year if we have time or funds, if we need to hire someone to help. But the roadside's just going to be restored. It should be sodded.
Yeah, by sodded.
We're not going to. Yeah, we shouldn't be doing any.
So I'm not confused here because it easily happens.
So
you said maybe this year. Are we going to be looking at this? What's the timeline on it?
Well, we're going to do moving the mounds in-house.
Correct.
As soon as we can get to that. Then we'll have to come back and fix everything else when we finish. So, I mean, hopefully we'll get to it. We're going to try to do a lot in-house. And what we couldn't, if we didn't have the equipment, we'd have to hire some, equipment by the hour, just to clean up a little. But I plan on doing it this year, yes.
The in-house, you keep referring to in-house work, and all I'm trying to understand is, are we talking 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months? When do you feel your crew could do at least move those mounds? I mean, are we waiting until the summer to do this? I'm just trying to get a feel for it.
Well,
you're doing it in-house, so that's why I'm trying to understand why we can't schedule it.
Well, we've had so much to do, to be honest with you, Mark. We haven't even thought of, going to that, We're still trying to finish up all the outside of the buildings. We have a lot of work in other places. Yes, I plan to do it within the next few months. Now, if you want a timeline like Ray will say when, I can't give you one, okay? But yes, I do plan on getting it, to that as soon as possible.
Okay, and that's all I ask for. And I know you're extremely busy, and don't get me wrong. I just need to kind of get a feel for it so that 6 months down the road, if I say we asked for it in January and we still don't have it done, I mean, you have to kind of put a stake in the ground to say when you think it will be done, because it'll be a moving target forever. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, Michael and I have talked about, moving the mounds in the past. It's just that we never set a date to start it. I mean, with all the moving and everything else we've been doing, we just haven't get to that.
We built that mound, right?
Yeah.
I guess. We built that mound, and now we're going to move it.
Yeah, but it's built.
No, you're in the wrong mound.
You're on the wrong mound.
You're in the wrong
telephone pole.
The
telephone pole is down in the middle.
Coming down Columbus.
The mound that's facing the driving range? Not that one.
It's on the side.
The one on the side? Where that fake road is?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
See, that's
so we built that mound, and now we're going to move that one.
Well, we built it. It's been there since...
that was...
Well, you refined it. It looks very nice now.
20 or 30 years old?
Yeah.
No,
we didn't do anything to it.
Not the one by...
No.
I am.
No.
Yeah.
That's all right. I guess my only other comment would be, why do I have to find out about it because Mark asked the question?
What are you talking about?
Mark asked the question.
Well, what? I mean, aren't we supposed to know about these things?
Well,
I think he understands where we have to go with this. So, let's
just so you might know, and that's why we all get questions, because that doesn't look very nice, and we all get flustered because, if Mark doesn't ask this question, it's like me. I mean, how many times have I asked you when you're going to...
The comment that was...
it looks terrible. All these, I know.
But the comment that keeps coming back, the reoccurring comment is, why did we not finish the job?
Yeah.
That was not in the contract to build the building. That's why it wasn't finished by the contract. That's why it's not done.
When I say that, you're taking it literally. What I'm saying is it was torn up. It was left rough. That's all I'm saying. And we should have had some kind of plan, whether it was part of the contract or not. We should have had some kind of plan to clean it up.
We just had
okay. Thank you.
I think he's got a good question, because I'm like Mark. I don't want it there in May, in June. I mean it's frustrating. It's just like over there, and I talked to Jim about behind number 11T. That hasn't been cleaned up yet. Howard's, right by Howard's house. That looks terrible still. I mean, and it's not, I don't think we're being critical of you. It's just, we want to know when, we don't see changes.
You can't put everybody everywhere, but
I
we
know.
have other work, you know? You know, I mean, these were things that came up after the construction, and you gotta understand that, so.
We do, trust me.
Okay, I see we have, I guess the public can stay here for this too, right? Sunshine Law Training Workshop. So, I guess, David,
Tana's passing out the handout, but all of you should have received a copy of this when you got your initial board, when you initially became supervisors.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do you want to take a 5 minute? Do we want to take a 5 minute? 2 minutes?
Yeah, it's probably would.
yeah, we can take a 2 minute.
Let's take a quick recess. Everybody can use the restroom. All right.
Okay, come on, guys. We got it.
Okay, the beginning of it talks a little bit about the role of the Board of Supervisors. Just a reminder, you're supposed to understand and comply with the Sunshine Law and the Code of Ethics for public officers. You're charged with governing the district by setting policies and procedures. That's under Policy A1107. You do delegate some of your executive authority to the general manager. Want you guys to be thinking, you are macro managers, you are large picture managers. You know, the goal is to avoid having to micromanage. You're always going to get requests. People are always going to come here asking you guys to do stuff, but the main thing you need to focus on is macro management. Holding to 10 regular public board meetings, plan for the future growth and maintenance of the district. I'd like to remind that only the board can take action or make directions as a group. Individual supervisors can request information or advice from district staff, but they should avoid giving directions to district employees unless specifically authorized, and that's under B 1108. So just want to remind you guys of that. The Sunshine Law is still 286.011. There are 3 basic requirements. If there's meetings or public boards, commissions must be open to the public, reasonable notice must be given, and minutes must be taken. The big question is always what constitutes a minute, or what constitutes a meeting. As it stands right now, if it's 2 or more members are together discussing some matter which foreseeably will come before the board or commission for action. Doesn't have to, it's face-to-face, telephonic, email, any sort of communication can constitute a meeting. And foreseeable has to be reasonably anticipated. If you're talking about something that may happen 10 or 15 years down the line, arguably that's not, necessarily foreseeable. You may not be supervisors then, it may never actually come to fruition. So those sort of discussions would be okay. But basically what you need to do is think to yourself, if you're talking about something with another supervisor, is it possible that we're ever going to have to vote on this? If the answer is yes, you should not be discussing it as of the current rules. There is some pending legislation that hopefully will have some answers. I think it's later this month about that may change about what constitutes a meeting, and I will let you guys know as soon as that is official. I checked on it yesterday. Nothing has been finalized, but it's also not dead. It hasn't died in committee or anything like that. It's still just pending. But I think it's up for action, very soon. It actually may even be today. So I will let you know once if that change occurs. Also, you can't act through intermediaries. You can always get information from other people, but you can't, direct or talk to Tanya. Like say, anything you talk to Tanya about, she's supposed to keep confidential. She's not supposed to divulge that. That would make her acting as an intermediary, and also you're not supposed to ask her, hey, go find out what so-and-so thinks about this, or that type of stuff. You are allowed to send information between yourselves, but the main thing is that it's just only information. You can send someone, here's some information I gathered. You can send it to the board, to other board members. Here's some information I have gathered which I want to discuss at the next board meeting, period. Nothing else. Generally, the best thing to do is to give it to Tanya, and she can disperse it, but it is not technically incorrect if you were to send it directly amongst yourselves. But generally what we suggest is if you want information spread, have came to do it. Reasonable notice is as self-explanatory as it sounds. There's no specific definition. Reasonable can be considered reasonable notice kind of depending on the situation. That's generally stuff that we have to worry about as far as getting the information out to the public and open to the public. Anybody that wants to can attend. They don't have to be a resident of Sun and Lakes. They don't have to be a property owner. Anybody that wants to can sit in on these meetings, and we can't stop them. Public participation, however, is a little bit different. You are, as the president and the board, you're allowed to set rules as to how you're going to allow people to speak. We generally keep a kind of informal process here. It's 3 minutes for public comment, 5 minutes if they ask for additional time. We're always pretty lax on that. I'm the official timekeeper. That was delegated to me a while back. If you want to change that, you can. I generally try and get a feel for what the board's allowing, but if someone seems to be rambling, I'll tell them your time's expired. But like I said, all we can do is say that here's the rules that are set out, and here's how we're going to allow people to communicate. We can't prevent people from communicating as long as they're within the rules. I think that even includes, if someone wants to stand in the corner with a video camera and record the whole thing, they're allowed to do that as long as they're not interfering with the meeting. So, if there's any questions?
I just have one question, since I'm not sure if this does overstep. If I wanted to send to each supervisor and say to them, is there anything particular you'd like to discuss at an upcoming meeting?
No.
You can't?
Anything you send should not expect a response.
Okay, so if somebody wants to discuss bocce, for an example, I'll use that because that was an example today. When the agenda is being put together, how would I know that that person wants to discuss bocce?
If a supervisor wants something on the agenda, then they go to the general manager. The general manager brings that to the president when they're setting the agenda.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. New guy on the block here.
And just like the handout that Supervisor Brooks gave out today, he could have emailed that to all of you. It wouldn't have been improper. Our recommendation is to send it to Tanya, have Tanya to send it out to everybody. But he could say, it could have been a very simple email. I've gathered this information. Be prepared to, please review it so we can discuss at the board meeting. Period. No response. Do not respond.
I know that.
But yeah, that sort of communication is okay. But generally, we want it to go through Tanya. That way, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about how it got disseminated.
So that's traditionally the way I think we've done it. But I just wanted to make sure. That's the only question I had. Any questions, boy?
I'm good.
Ready? Meeting's adjourned.